The following podcast contains adult language and themes, so don't say we didn't fucking warn you.
You're listening to SarahTalk. It's political.
If you really give a fuck about the life of the unborn, you'd better be prepared to help fund WIC and food stamps and welfare, because you don't get to say, I care about that life until it's born, and then turn around and say, well, you shouldn't have had sex if you couldn't care for this child. You should have gotten a better education. You need to work harder. Maybe you should take a second job. It's not my responsibility.
Critical.
When was the last time a Christian was allowed to have a separate place to say their prayers? Look, you can literally bow your head at your fucking desk. You're like, why did he get the thing and I didn't get the thing? You didn't ask for the thing!
And positively LGBT positive.
Look, whenever there's someone coming after my community, they are either wearing a MAGA hat, carrying a Bible, or more often both.
Oh, and occasionally completely absurd.
What the hell is in Idaho?
Potatoes.
Anyway? You could take a drill a
Drill up
hole
over the
in a
potato
potato and
and
fuck
you'd
a
be
potato.
fine.
Would you marry a potato though? Could that be okay?
No, but you wouldn't have to marry a potato because a potato doesn't need consent for you to fuck it.
And now, from Haines City, Florida, your host, Sarah Austin.
Hey everybody, welcome to SarahTalk. Ygraine is back in the house. Oh, we do have a blurry screen. I was worried about that.
Are we blurry?
We're very blurry.
I would never know. I'm blind.
I fixed that one time.
Oh, did you?
Now I don't
Once?
know. Now I don't know how to fix it. God damn it. Well, there we go. See, hope that didn't have any of my personal banking information on it. Anyway, so welcome to the show. This is episode 175.
Wow, you're so much more productive than I.
When we decided to do this thing live, that's when the productivity really clicked. Because
Humiliation, possibly.
well, and I say that after skipping last week, but when we were pre-recording, it was just so easy to be like, well, didn't get anything done this week. But when it's live, it's like, okay, we got to be in here. We got to do this. Unless, there's health circumstances or stuff like
Don't dare
that.
give my producer any ideas. Don't you didn't hear that?
No,
Okay. No, I don't.
you don't want to do a live show? Okay.
No,
10-4.
not my own.
We have lots to talk about tonight. We're mad as hell again, still, again. Every time this happens.
Is this ever gonna stop?
So we'll talk about that. There is the pod puppy is down here on the floor. She's brought her toys in here now too. That's great.
And you can guess what I'm paying attention to.
And there's some fun church state stuff in the news, of course. And then we're going to reintroduce the Florida man. Now, I don't know if you caught this one, but a couple weeks ago we talked about there was a story in the Ledger about should you laugh at Florida man, and being the kind of person that when you take in new information, you reevaluate your opinions and beliefs. I read that article, and it was primarily about this guy who we talked about on the show and had a good laugh at, who climbed over the fence into some crocodile pit or something while he was wearing Crocs. And it was funny. And
It is funny.
And we had a good laugh. But then when you look back at his story, like those were the Crocs that he had been given in prison the last time he was in prison. And there was homelessness and there was drug abuse. And there's all of these things. And I can't, in good conscience, say we need to, respect and value and consider people's situations and all of these things. And then, ha, 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 what a dumbass. Look at that guy. So, Brent, who did the theme song to the Florida Man, we were talking about that, and he said, well, why don't you change it up? Why don't you do like a feel-good Florida Man story, something positive?
How hard was that?
Why didn't I think of that?
Okay.
Thanks, Brent. So that's what we'll do.
Okay.
There's a brand new Florida Man, and there's a brand new theme song. So there you go. But first, let's start with this questions from the internet. Ygraine, why the fuck would a, quote, Satan witch do atheist pods with fags?
Why wouldn't I?
Thank you, Twitter. Wow.
Actually, I've got like, let me see, about 3 or 4 people who are like really having fun thinking that they're fucking with me. And instead it's just like this gift that keeps on giving, that I can play off of. But why would I? Simply enough, because Satanists are atheists, and I cannot say authoritatively we were the first church that welcomed with open arms homosexuals, transgender people, I can't say that, but I can say we were one of the first, and we were certainly have never made a secret about our support.
Yep.
And, what could be more individual than defining yourself? That's Satanism in a nutshell.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's why.
Yeah. It was I don't know what your friend, your new online friend, thought you would have replied with, but that's what I would have expected.
Well, a hearty fuck you happens from time to time, or, what latency is, got you all uptight. But
right.
Given the fact that I actually wanted people to listen to the show, I went with something else.
Yeah, there you go. So let's not talk in any specifics, but are you ready for school to start back up? Our schools start back up Monday.
They do, and let me see, the half of my life that I've lived here and raised kids here, I have never gotten over the idea of us going back to school before Labor Day.
Yeah.
I think it's lame. I think it's bullshit. Of all the traditions to throw away, that one never hurt anybody. Jesus Christ. So, I don't think anyone's ever ready for the magnitude of shit you suddenly had to. Back in the day, it was like, do you have a notebook? Okay, go to school.
Right.
So now you are responsible, even in public schools, for tremendous amounts of stuff.
Yeah, and meanwhile, teacher pay is still stagnant, and the funds that come from on high are dwindling and being sent to private religious schools instead of public schools. And so you got teachers that can't even buy the little trim things that go on the cork board. Like, these teachers are buying supplies out of their own pockets. And we're the kind of room moms that, so we get the list of here's all the things that your kid needs. And then the teachers, and this is disgusting that this even exists, have a wish list, right?
Exactly.
I need Lysol wipes and tissues and stuff like that, right? So we buy a bunch of that shit too, and usually at least one of the entire list, because that's just garbage. That you would start the year off without the things that you need to have in a classroom.
And more than that, if it isn't given to the teacher for dispersal, the potential for shaming the poor kid is off the charts. And, 95% of these teachers do spend amazing amounts of money to help out these kids, and their thank you is usually, why are you calling me about my kid?
Right.
So anything we can do, again, if we paid teachers a competitive wage, we'd probably have more competitive students, but I know that's crazy.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, if you want them to get a good education, they should go to a fine private Christian school. I don't understand what the problem is. Just
so they cannot learn science and then go to Yale and say, what? In medical school.
Yep, exactly.
What?
On the topic of school, I'm going to throw this out there, pander to my audience a little bit. So unrelated to the podcast, as the atheist community of Polk County, we partnered with a local nonprofit called Hearth here in Polk County, and they do. They are partners with the school district. They identify students who are homeless or in transition, and that is defined by the McKinney-Vento Act as anyone. It could be. They could be living in an extended motel. They could be couch surfing. They could be traditional classic on the street homeless. It could be multiple families doubled up in a single family unit.
Oh, jeez.
And there's over 3,700 students in our school district. That is more than, I can't remember the two, but pick any two high schools, Bartow Senior and Auburndale High, or pick any two high schools. There are more kids experiencing homelessness than the enrollment of those two high schools. And
Unacceptable.
So,
cycle continues.
Right. And so to sort of try to help break that cycle, the Hearth Project does, they go a little bit further beyond the school supply thing. Like, if you're alive and you leave your house, you probably know everybody and their brother is doing a donation drive for school supplies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every year. And that's great because those things are needed. But this group goes a little bit further and said, in fact, they told us, look, we're good on school supplies this year. Surprisingly enough, we're set. But here's some things that you could do, because we do more than that. The team puts together hygiene packs, and he said, we're pretty good on most things, but oddly, the one thing that we just aren't getting enough of is the 2-in-1 shampoo conditioner. So bring us those. Gas cards.
Always handy.
So that these parents, if the parents are involved, if the parents are there, can be involved in their kids' schooling and can go to the school when they need to for teacher check-ins, and just to be present in their kids' education and take them to appointments to, when they have to go sit for other social services that are helping their family and fill out paperwork and all of that stuff. And
because
then
we have shit public transport
exactly
in this county.
Yes,
None.
It's terrible.
And
Yep.
I mean, the little bit that the bus that exists apparently stops pretty much. I don't know if there's like a dice roll involved or, magic 8-ball, but it's not like a steady thing. You can't like plan a life around it.
Right.
And that's absurd too, which might explain a lot of the other problems we're discussing.
Absolutely. And then one of the other things is, for a lot of these folks who are living in the extended motels, the owners of these motels, the operators, have decided that they're going to charge extra if you want a room with a microwave in it, which I think is appalling. If that these people can't barely afford to live here first, let alone pay extra for a microwave. So what they do is they ask for donations of crock pots, so that they give these families crock pots so that they can cook their kids a hot meal.
That isn't McDonald's.
Right.
That they don't get shamed
You can
for.
make some healthy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know we bought 2 crock pots, and I know of one more family who's picked up a couple, I believe. And then we had some anonymous donor matches, and we're up to like $365 in the fundraiser, and that ends the 28th, I think, 27th or 28th. So if you're out there listening and you want to help us help these kids, if you want to help the atheist community of Polk County help these kids, I'm just plugging it because I have a platform. You can go to polkatheists.org/hearth. And I'll post it on our social media later too. If you want to make a donation and help these kids, it's a terrible thing that's happening all around the world, all around the country. But it seems, when you look at the numbers here in our area, 3,700 kids in a county is, that's crazy.
I don't even understand it.
Yeah. Becca has joined us.
Hi, Becca.
Hey, guys.
Baby's asleep.
Barely. Oh, my God. I stood in the doorway while she tossed and turned and moved and just, braced myself to have to pretend I was coming back from the bathroom.
God, I don't miss that.
Right? Oh my God. So we might have another guest
Right.
here before too long. I don't know. We'll see.
Well,
she didn't want to go down, but
right.
I got her earlier than it happened. So
Yeah,
hey.
that's impressive.
What did I miss other than the plug about Hearth?
That's mostly it.
I was in the chat, but I was only in the chat. I couldn't really
hear.
listen because I had to not have my phone on because you're not supposed to have devices at bedtime.
Keith said
you're not supposed to.
Keith said Rachel picked up some stuff today, so great. We'll have
Cool.
some more stuff coming.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, we looked around and thought, like, what do we want to do to try to help the problem?
Mm-hmm.
And we came up with their organization just because of the sort of expanded things that they do, and we had their homeless liaison coordinator. I can't remember his title. He came and talked to our group's educational meeting last month.
Roush?
Yeah, Ben Rouge. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, I read that. Okay, just an example is how Satanists may be slightly different in their method of dealing with something like that. I think what you're doing is wonderful. But, I've seen those hotels, and they all had microwaves in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather sneak into the hotel, find out where they're hiding all the fucking microwaves.
And distribute them out.
Take pictures of
Sure.
them and send them to their corporate, offices and make sure that, it should hurt to be a douchebag.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a douche move.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
Yeah.
just a little itty bit of revenge. Never hurt anybody.
No.
Yep. But
You got to do it the right way, though. I mean, the right way. I mean, don't publicize what you did or how you got it.
That's why God made the New York Times. You send shit.
Oh, God.
I mean,
God made that, really?
God being whoever made the New York Times. I always say that, too. And people always look so shocked. It's like figure of speech.
right.
Right.
I don't mean Jesus H. Christ either.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right.
Oh.
When I say God damn it, I don't actually expect God to damn anything.
Yeah, right.
There'd be a line.
Could you imagine if those were the prayers he answered?
All the damn it ones?
Yeah.
Well, then he'd be my God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I think, I don't want to get into this tonight unless you want to. I mean, we can, but I think there's something so much deeper to that, and that is the lack of empathy, the inability of people to put themselves in. I mean, look, how many times have we said, like, we're all one disaster away from homelessness?
Mm-hmm.
Because we po. Okay? So what I'm saying is, had it not been for the settlement that we got,
Right.
like, thankfully we were able to get a lawyer and do all of these things after the accident. If it had just been, oh, well, there's your accident, good luck, hope you figure it out,
There's no way.
we would have been sunk. We would have been sunk.
No way.
And so I think that could be anything,
Mm-hmm.
and that could strike any of us. And to me, that clicks in my mind. That makes me think of those who are experiencing homelessness, those who are, way under the poverty line.
Who've already gone through that one
Who
disaster.
went through that.
And now they're trying to pick up the pieces, and it's just
Yep.
so
And we
difficult.
walk by them on the road and do this and
Right.
turn the other way and don't want to. Yeah.
Because it's hard. And we don't
Mhm.
like hard.
Right.
And we don't want to acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
that we are just 1, 2, even if you're lucky, 3 steps away
Right.
from your entire life changing. But I think people are kind of crueler to things that are monetarily based. There's more
sure.
of an idea that,
Well, if I give it to you and then something happens to me, what am I supposed
Right.
to do?
Well,
Like, and
Yeah.
I understand that, but at the same time,
then you got 8 guys in this country with more wealth than
right,
all of the
right,
poor.
all of the.
I just don't know why it has to be one or the. I mean, I've in my life ridden from being extremely liberal to being
kind of in the middle.
almost hardcore, but like old school conservative, not like, you know.
Not today's conservative.
I don't even know what
No,
that
I don't know
meant.
what that. There's a new word for that needs to come out of this, and I don't know what it would be. Other than
Crazy is the one that
Yeah.
leaps to mind. But
Yeah.
anyway.
more like psychotic. Like crazy doesn't even do it for me.
What's strange is now I enjoy reading the old school conservatives, the never Trumpers,
Right.
because I find them to be
Extremists.
those last kind of bastion of some memory
Mm-hmm.
of that incredibly, of the party of Lincoln.
Yeah.
Right.
There is a
Yes.
vestige of that I only find in
Small.
the never Trumpers,
Yeah.
but who maintain George Will, Rick Wilson. There's a bunch of them, and they may not like a lot of the social programs I would support.
Right.
Right.
But they don't fuck around. They look, that's racist shit. That's ridiculous.
Right.
What are you thinking of? You know, and I appreciate that from
Yeah.
them. And it gives me also a broader than my own, at this juncture, being old and in my ways, tunnel vision look at the world. You have to gut check yourself constantly. There's too much crazy going on not to.
Yep.
And almost all the good lies have an element of truth, so you have to like double check.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I've seen with people who hit middle age and, you know, they're working hard, they're in the prime and they've got something, is somehow they think anyone else getting something reduces their
Yes.
something.
Right.
Somehow somebody else doing okay makes you less okay.
What does that mean? More rights for you doesn't, or more rights for me doesn't mean less rights for you. It's not fucking pie.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's this, they didn't work for it. They didn't do what I did. They didn't do it. And then as you get a little older, you realize, do you fucking realize how close you've been to the abyss?
Right.
Or how many times you've fallen over it?
Uh-huh.
I've had to restart life at least 4 times as an adult. And I mean from nada. So, you know, it happens.
And I think about, like, I mean, my grandparents, my parents even, the cost of living, even 20 years ago, is nothing compared to what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got, like, starting pay for entry-level jobs is less than $15 an hour. Back then, you made, probably what? It was like $6 an hour or whatever was minimum wage. But
$5.50.
yeah,
It was
like,
ridiculously low in Florida anyway because it's the right to get screwed state.
But you weren't paying $1,800 a month for a one-bedroom or for a one-bedroom apartment.
Yes.
You were paying like $500 a month for a 3-bedroom house.
Matt, my favorite graphic. There's an infographic that shows like, you know, what my grandparents earned
Versus what their
what they earned versus what their expenses were.
Right.
Here's how much it cost you to live. Here's how much it cost you to go to college. And then you adjust for inflation and overlay today's numbers onto that, and it's just crazy. It's crazy.
It doesn't work.
The cost of living has increased exponential to the cost of pay.
Yeah.
I thought that was called inflation. Or something? I mean, why is that not?
Why are we not checking that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not an economist, but
Well, I think that's the answer. I
Well,
think they assume
absolutely.
we're not economists, and that
sure.
Well, that's what they said. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry,
And when you
but
try to
if
fix
it's
that,
yeah.
when you try to bump pay up,
Right.
to make it more in line with what it would have been when my parents or whatever were younger. Even my sisters, they're we're a decade between us. Well, you can't do that because see, if you increase the pay, then the cost of everything else is just going to go up. Yeah, that's because of greedy fucking corporate interests.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Right. You got people. It shouldn't cost somebody it should not come down to, oh, my insulin this month is the same amount as my mortgage.
Yes.
I'm
Like,
just
that's
fairly
crazy.
confident that once I had $100 billion and I was making $1 billion a day, I'd like to think that I would say, you know, I'll put the rest of this in the bank, all right? And, I'll take half of this, and maybe we'll filter this back to our employees, and again, get better employees, more motivated employees, better customer service. But no, apparently there is no such thing as having enough money.
Right.
No.
And I don't understand. What disease do you think you're going to get that this will cure that, a couple of million less wouldn't?
And you
What
can't take it with
exactly-
you when you go.
Well, you can give it to your kids, but you don't
Yep.
appear to like kids, so why worry about it?
Right?
I think-
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh,
I mean, well, and then that's the other thing. The kids that do inherit all of these things, they're one of two breeds.
Self-destructive or
They're
assholes, right?
either very extremely self-destructive, and that's
Or greedy, nasty fucks
Yeah.
who want to beat up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, very rarely do you find the philanthropic billionaire's son who's going to spend all of his money feeding the children of Africa.
Right.
It's just not a thing.
It's sad that it's not a thing.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
a thing.
I
It
can't-
should be. I would love to be a billionaire's kid and
And
take
just
all of my inheritance.
Make it
and just-
rain.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
only because you've been busted. You,
Right.
Probably. Well,
Yes. Yeah. We
'cause
didn't.
know what
We
it's like
didn't
to be
grow
You
up
know
here.
what
with,
it feels
Right.
like. You
with
know.
the Trump's
Yeah.
golden spoon in your mouth.
Yeah, that's true.
Keith says, "Oh, just go get 5 more jobs, snowflakes."
Oh, Keith.
All right, so let's get into the topics here.
We have topics?
We do.
I can't believe it. We have topic.
And I'm
Are they topical?
excited. They are, sadly.
Mm.
I'm actually excited for this conversation because this is one that I know you've been struggling with, trying to figure out where you fall on it. So I think it'll be fun to talk it out because I want challenge my own, assumptions and thoughts on the thing too. Like I'm open to that. So I think the discussion will be fun.
I have to be very honest right now. We're all friends on Facebook. I saw the post, but I didn't get a chance to go back and read it. I only saw the blip of her comment that said, "Oh, we're going to talk about it on the show." And then I was going to go back and read it, and I never did. So I have no idea what we're about to talk about.
Well,
Surprise her.
we're
I love
angry.
it.
We're angry.
We're
Oh,
fucking
okay.
angry.
I'm good at angry.
We have the shooting Saturday in El Paso,
Yeah.
Texas,
Oh, yeah.
and Sunday in Dayton, Ohio. And we're that this has become so commonplace here, and that no one will act. No one will do anything. And Mitch McConnell is
Useless.
He's douche.
he pulled up into his turtle shell in the middle of the road and is blocking any kind of movement on the freeway. So how many more?
How old is he, and what's the life expectancy?
123.
Ugh.
How many people will have to die
At least.
before somebody does something? And we stop fucking arguing on Facebook about guns aren't shooting themselves, the guns aren't the problem, it's mental health is the problem, no racism is the problem. Stop arguing and fucking do something.
Because
I think,
arguing isn't going to fix anything.
We'll get into this, but I think that's the point that I'm at is just do something. Do the wrong thing. Do anything. Because right now we've done nothing.
Try.
Time and time again, and look what we have to show for it. More dead bodies.
Yeah.
So,
Well, first of all, because it is a political topic, I can only speak for myself.
yes.
Yes.
The Church of Satan
That's why I didn't
has
put your title
no
on the screen.
position on the gun issue.
Yep.
Except that as one of our rules is you have to be law-abiding.
Yeah.
So therefore, whatever existing law exists in your state
You have to.
is precisely what you have to follow.
Right.
Now, that said, on a personal note, I, as Becca was mentioning, I ask people, what do you really think? And I'll tell you why I ask this. My partner is a Southern gentleman who was raised around not just a gun or two, but like guns,
Racks.
plural.
Yeah.
Okay? Highly involved with, he can, just tell you shit that you wouldn't believe. But he also has great disdain for what he calls gun culture.
Mm-hmm.
As he puts it, you don't have like hammer culture or other tools.
Right.
Mhm.
These are tools.
Yes.
You don't need to have a club.
Right.
You don't need, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Which hammer do you like? But because of that, I've learned a lot. And because I do have, although I don't consider myself one, I have a libertarian leaning.
Mm-hmm.
I have wanted desperately to support the Second Amendment in the broadest way possible, just because I don't want anyone fucking with the First. It's
Right.
really that kind
Yeah.
of selfish.
Okay.
You know, but agreed with you that you can't say this won't work until you've tried it. Okay. Now, I like all the memes. You know, they made me, drugs illegal. That didn't. Yeah, I get all that.
Right.
But we got to try something. But I actually don't think it's any of those things. Not exclusively, anyway. Mental health. I don't think it's guns.
It's a complex issue.
It's America. If you look at other countries where even you can have firearms, or that there's a firearm in every house, they don't have this problem.
Yeah.
There is something inherently wrong with us, okay?
Yeah.
Now, I'm probably going to foist it on that kind of overwhelmingly authoritative, dogmatic Judeo-Christian tradition. I'm going to lead it on that because, we have a lot of people in this country who really believe that shit about having dominion.
Yep.
And, that's where I'm going to lean it, but I'm aware, I'm a religious snob and I think they're dicks anyway, so it's easy to do. But I don't think any one thing's going to fix this.
No, definitely not.
And
agreed.
I'm upset when everyone says, well, he's obviously crazy if he did this, because I believe that, A, alleviates his responsibility, and I don't want to do that. Everybody who goes falls off suddenly gets to live, the John Hinckley existence. No. I'm not comfortable with that. I don't like red flag laws for the simple reason, how could it get any easier to fuck over your neighbor? I mean, just how could it? And as somebody who has lived under that gun, where people did call it, I saw her beating up her kid, because they don't like the witch, that terrifies me.
Yeah.
But what I found out when I did that post, and it was to the fucking every single one who said, I am a gun owner and I support background checks. Some a little more wishy-washy on the waiting period. Yep. But every single one of them, including people who work in gun stores, were supporting the background checks. Now, when I posited the notion that I know for a fact that the lack of a waiting period damn near killed me, I had a gun held to my head less than 2 hours after it came out of a store without a waiting period. 3 days later, everything would have been fine.
Right.
I'm going to say that for domestic abuse sufferers, you need a waiting period.
Yep.
But I have no illusions that that's going to fix anything.
Sure.
None whatsoever. And
especially when you look at these kids that have done the school shootings and how methodically they've planned it out. If you want to, you're going to work around whatever it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the job is to make it harder.
Yeah.
Because not
sure.
everyone has, and that's why.
But that's why I agree with you that I don't think the waiting period is going to push the needle so far.
No, but each one of those pieces, when you stack them all up together, makes more of a move.
Sure.
But what I really want to say is, to all my conservative friends, I don't know the progressive liberal. I know they exist. I've seen them online, but I don't know the one who wants to go to their door and take their guns. I don't know that person.
No.
I mean, I know that's what we're all supposed to want. We're going to come down and take your guns.
No.
I guess while we're taking your balls and other assorted things you care about. But nobody's coming to get your shit.
That's the thing I just don't understand. I'm of the opinion that if you've acquired a gun and you have it legally and you've not done anything wrong and you're not, you don't have a record of being abusive or aggressive or whatever, then we're good. Now, the minute you start exhibiting behaviors, that's
my
where it
thing.
gets iffy. So do we have to have, you have to go in it when you hit a certain age and retake your driver's test?
Yes.
So is there a mental health exam that needs to be happening for people that have a registered gun?
And we need to be careful because not all mental illness is a flag for you shouldn't have a gun.
No, right.
Right. So you got to be careful about that.
Sure.
But that was my response, right? A big part of if I'm going to write a solution to this, a big part, and let me stress part, because people will hear the,
Make sure you say portion,
this is,
piece,
this is
use
the
all the different...
only thing that'll fix it.
Don't bother. Just say your shit. They'll ignore it anyway.
Yes, you're right.
Just want to make sure you're clear that way.
I am much less worried about somebody who is dangerous in a mental state going and buying a gun than I am someone who is in a good mental state who buys a gun and 5, 10 years, 15 years down the road, something snaps.
Oh, sure.
And they become dangerous.
Oh, sure.
That's what I'm worried about more than anything. You look at all the profiles of so many of these shooters is they bought their gun legally. There was nothing on their record.
Right.
They had never committed any crimes. There was nothing that would have alerted you to any concern at all. And then something happened.
What's the term they use for that when
Shit.
they go postal?
Yeah, it's a mental break.
It's yeah. But like that would be my, like, you can't screen for that.
Right.
Well, actually,
if you do
right,
the
not if it's never happened, but I do believe, and this is again what my husband and I
create
said.
a pattern.
You can make the waiver of HIPAA laws for mental health part of the process of the background check.
Yeah.
I mean, I want 47 guns and, blah, blah, blah. Well, then you're going to have to sign this little piece of paper that says we can look into your mental health. And I believe, and I'll pull it up later, one of the people who posted on that thread showed there is actually a database that shows whether it's used for, like, DMV. Again, the DMV correlation is kind of trippy. And, of course, some numbnuts will tell me, well, they didn't put, driving in the Constitution.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. But in terms of having access to the same records to guarantee that you're safe, I don't see why they can't be shared.
Let me see what you think about this correlation comparison, because I've heard this one a lot, and I think, oh man, stick it to the conservatives. If I wanted to go into Planned Parenthood and have an abortion,
oh, no.
they would sit me down. They would ask me 37 questions. When did I have last sex? They'd show me a video.
Yeah.
They make sure that I wasn't suicidal. They'd run me through the ringer and then make me wait to have that abortion.
Yep.
Why aren't we putting people that want to buy a gun through the same thing? Because if you're gonna, I'm taking a life.
Yeah, in your worldview, that's
But you could just give this 19-year-old kid, because he's 19 and he's filled out the registration,
but Becca,
the
we
power
don't
to
know
take a life.
he's gonna kill a baby.
And your right to kill a baby is not enshrined in our Constitution.
But
like
my
the
right
to own a gun
But
is.
my right to control my body should be.
There's a good.
Not when someone's running around with a gun shooting off a Walmart.
Yeah.
So much for that theory.
There's a good argument, I think, to be made for a reconsideration of the Second Amendment. Sit down. Hold on. Right? Because once upon a time, we decided, hey, you know what? No more alcohol. Nobody should have alcohol ever again. Alcohol, no more.
It's like a whole big thing.
And then you know what happened?
6 years later,
We went, okay, fuck, that was a
was
bad idea.
so
Alcohol
stupid.
for everybody. Just make sure that you're this age and you don't, do stupid shit.
Yeah, but do you know why they did? And this will go back to the gun thing.
Mm-hmm.
They had to repeal the Volstead Act, not because people just wanted to get drunk, but because organized crime had created such a potent black market that it affected the regulars. I don't want to see that kind of black market with guns.
No.
I believe that would make it twice as dangerous.
Sure.
I think the Second Amendment actually protects us away
Well,
from
yeah.
it.
And I think my point there is only to say that the argument from the originalist textualists that say, well, the Constitution, and we have to interpret it exactly as it was intended by the people who wrote it. We have to get into their heads and understand what they meant.
Right.
And whatever they wrote was what they wrote, and that's how it is. We can change that, guys.
You know what? Hold on.
We can...
Hold on. It just clicked.
It clicked.
We can't update the amendments because how it was written. Well, then guess what? Y'all need to go back to practicing the Mosaic Law because that's how it was written.
So So listen.
No.
I'm sorry. But, like, seriously, like...
You need 2/3 of states. It'll never happen.
Right.
That's why I don't even
Right.
indulge
No.
in the conversation. it's
No, but here's the thing that's interesting about the Second Amendment, and that is, if you are an originalist, if you are a textualist, as it is written, you have to give weight to the in order to form a militia clause.
We don't live in that
You
world
no,
anymore.
no. But listen, what I'm saying is,
Okay.
the originalist view should be that when they wrote it, the right to own and bear arms was tied to the need to form a militia to protect yourself against a tyrannical government. And then, in whatever year it was, there was a Supreme Court decision that went in and said, actually, what the Second Amendment does is it extends rights to a person to own a firearm for whatever reason. Period.
Well, that's A, because it was vague, and B, because, they were knee-deep at that time, obviously. I mean, you had both 1812 and, there were actual movements of other foreign invaders. But I think more importantly is, and what I would trot out is that wonderful phrase, well-regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
They did.
Well-regulated.
Mm-hmm.
But I also saw, and I hate memes, and I use them like everyone else, but I hate the fact that they're bumper sticker slogans that don't go into depth and, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
and are easily pulled apart. But somebody wrote something to the effect of, you don't need guns, blah, blah, blah. Why would you need, the Second Amendment?
Mm-hmm.
And this person wrote, did you not just tell me that we have kids in concentration camps, you walnut, was the phrase.
Yep.
And I can't help think that in some ways the liberal side is making the job real easy for the conservative side to make the argument, see, don't you want to protect yourself from this tyrannical government?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really put it past this, guy you call a monster to, do something that you might feel you have to protect yourself from? Yikes.
But
I will.
Yikes.
Let me talk about shit my dad posts on Facebook.
oh God, really?
Look, I wanted to
Shit,
start.
my dad post?
I wanted to start like a Facebook page or something of shit my dad posts on Facebook, because he is like ultra conservative. Anyway,
Go on.
One would imagine semi-heartbroken.
It's,
and
well,
so
probably,
I wish I could put this on screen, but I didn't plan for this. So it's a picture of a native, and it's a meme, and it says, "Give up your guns and trust that the government won't violate your rights. After all, that worked out great for us." So there's a few different responses that one could make to such a meme. The first being, right, because the natives had guns when we came here to fucking take their land from them. You jackass. And they did not.
Go learn some history.
And the second is, right, you and your fucking Glock are going to go up against the government that has Apache fucking helicopters and nuclear missiles.
Right.
Good fucking luck!
I believe it's a conceptual argument. And
But that's the arguments, that's the memes. That's
But
their
again,
point.
I am incredibly reassured by the fact that so many people I questioned were just like, yeah, of course, background checks. Don't be stupid. Of course, But they're equally, I mean, we all believe the meme, or at least, the anti-gun people believe the meme that they're all like, no, don't take our guns. But equally, they believe that the liberals are all out to take the guns. The fact that we
that's
cannot
not my
have a
position.
debate, a genuine debate in the Senate because it's being blocked,
Right.
and this shit is happening, we're going to, if we can't even get that far where we can find common ground on any topic that we can't even, what's the point of discussing it if we can't get it in front of the
Right?
Senate? What is the point? And then they can turn around and say, see, you don't even try.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think for my point, the longer we go without any action,
Oh, I'm
the
all
more
for action.
likely I'm to say, fine, take the fucking guns then.
Right.
Take them all.
I
Because the
agree.
more this happens,
Yeah.
the closer you get to that side
Well,
of
that's
like what
our psychology.
like,
we got to
seriously.
I'm out of Coke.
Yeah.
Discuss amongst
Oh
yourselves.
jeez.
Bring me something, sweetheart.
What do you
I'm
want?
dying. Anything.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sitting here like, is my lipstick dry?
I got Diet Coke.
No, we're good. We're talking amongst ourselves.
Do you want water? You want Diet Coke? I think there's sweet tea.
Sweet tea's great. Thank you.
Okay.
See? I have adapted to the South. I like sweet tea.
I love sweet tea.
Do you really? I never even heard of it till I got here.
Really?
Hell yeah.
Well, a friend of mine asked. She's from Philly, and she says, how do you order unsweet tea? And I say, you order it. You say, and like some nasty, because it's nasty without sugar. Nasty.
Really? I just say unsweet.
Yeah, no, that's how. No, it was a joke.
Oh, I get it, but I mean, no, it's not nasty because you use the artificial sugar.
Because when you're down here, like most places, it's just sweet tea.
Oh, bringing Southerner up north, and they're like, it's like, you
bad.
just shot their dog if you tell them you don't have sweet tea. They don't even understand lunch.
No,
without that.
No, you need your sweet tea.
Oh, you're a doll. Thank you. I was thirsty. Okay, so let's
so
face
you got
it.
all the world's problem solved. Does that look?
No, we were talking about sweet tea.
Well,
sweetie.
We got that part.
So wait a minute. Okay, I have to back up because
okay,
you know how my brain works. I'm all ADD crazy.
I should have got more ice.
So because I'm not a historian and I failed history multiple times.
Yikes!
When these amendments were written, like let's go back to this conversation about originalists.
Okay.
So they were written. When were they written? Like how many colonies were there? How big of a country were we? How big was the government that could be tyrannical?
Right. What's the
like? Were you going up against
context?
5 guys, 20 guys, 500 guys?
Well, and everybody had muskets.
Right.
We all had the same. We all had the same weapon.
Right.
Right.
But that's what I think about. Like, okay, we are a massive country now. Like all of D.C. If you look at how many buildings there are, people working for the government. Who are you going up against with a pistol? Like,
right. Well, and you know the answer. I don't want a pistol. I want an AR-15, and I want bump stocks, and which is, and I'll tell you what. I've talked now to enough gun people to know. Once the shooting starts, it's so easy to change a magazine that that shit doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
it's just. And I also believe that the gun lobby and the gun merchants really, really want to keep this fear going that people are coming for your guns.
Yep.
It helps them sell guns. And, and it makes people hoard things. And that's good for them. They like
their
that.
Their sales go up.
Oh, so absolutely. Every
again,
time.
we feed into hands constantly, and it's really irritating.
I have a friend who's a survivalist, and he has a whole garage full of all kinds of crazy, like, types of guns and ammunition and Kevlar everything. He's waiting for the zombie apocalypse or something. And I'm like...
the joke's going to be on you when he survives it.
Right? Sure it is. That's okay. He's in Ohio or some nonsense.
Oh.
Well...
and not much help to me.
Let's move into some of the news stories that are going around, that are going on around this. And let's start with, as Americans, when in times like these, we turn to our leaders for their words of comfort, from fireside chats to Twitter, from we only have 5 channels and the president is on every fucking one of them, to YouTube, we look to leadership. I give you President of the United States.
Are you tired of winning yet? Are you tired of winning yet?
Good morning. My fellow Americans, this morning, our nation is overcome with shock, horror, and sorrow. This weekend, more than 80 people were killed or wounded in 2 evil attacks. One Saturday morning in El Paso, Texas, a wicked man went to a Walmart store where families were shopping with their loved ones. He shot and murdered 20 people and injured 26 others, including precious little children. Then, in the early hours of Sunday morning, Dayton, Ohio, another twisted monster opened fire on a crowded downtown street. He murdered 9 people, including his own sister, and injured 27 others. The First Lady and I join all Americans in praying and grieving for the victims, their families, and the survivors. We will stand by their side forever. We will never forget.
Kind of like they never forget the responders to the 9/11, and then fucking forever to anyway.
Barbaric slaughters are an assault upon our communities, an attack upon our nation, and a crime against all of humanity. We are outraged and sickened by this monstrous evil, the cruelty, the hatred, the malice, the bloodshed, and the terror. Our hearts are shattered for every family whose parents, children, husbands, and wives were ripped from their arms and their lives. America weeps for the fallen. We are a loving nation, and our children are entitled to grow up in a just, peaceful, and loving society. Together, we lock arms to shoulder the grief. We ask God in heaven to ease the anguish of those who suffer, and we vow to act with urgent resolve.
When do we ask God to stop letting people get killed?
And when do we actually act?
Yeah.
With urgent resolve.
Now, let me tell you, this is teleprompter Trump.
Oh, yeah.
It was the first thing I said. I look at my husband and I go, oh, yeah. He wrote that.
Yeah, he's staying on the script here.
And
it's
great.
good script. It's a good script.
The words are great. They're not his words.
But coming from him, it seems way off.
Lots of presidents use speechwriters, but speechwriters learn to write in your voice.
Yes.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
But no speechwriter can write in that voice.
No. But there's no, genuine anything there. It's just a hollow, I'm going to say a bunch of words, and we are devastated and heartbroken.
But you're limited.
I want to thank the many law enforcement personnel who responded to these atrocities with the extraordinary grace and courage of American heroes. I have spoken with Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, as well as Mayor DeMargo of El Paso, Texas, and Mayor Nan Whaley of Dayton, Ohio, to express our profound sadness and unfailing support. Today, we also send the condolences of our nation to President Obrador of Mexico and all the people of Mexico for the loss of their citizens in the El Paso shooting. Terrible, terrible thing. I have also been in close contact with Attorney General Barr and FBI Director Wray. Federal authorities are on the ground, and I have directed them to provide any and all assistance required, whatever is needed. The shooter in El Paso posted a manifesto online consumed by racist hate. In one voice, our nation must condemn racism.
Donald Trump. In one voice, our nation must condemn the racism coming out of the White House.
I just can't. Look, I think there is no way anybody in that position could do much better than a decently...
Sure.
You're going to offend somebody. Yeah. All that is fine. I don't hold that against... And I also don't hold the gaffe at the end against him either, because I think it's petty.
Yes.
And I think it makes the people who point it out look petty.
Yep.
Okay? And of course, if it was just once, you could accept it's an accident, but that's not the case. But there's so many other good things to bitch about that just seems ridiculous.
Right.
And
when he talks about with the Mexico and God, we're sorry for these were Mexican citizens, we're sorry for, and then you flip the channel and he's like, these rapists and murderers and drug dealers and criminals, this is the Mexican people coming to our country. Fuck you.
And are you sorry about all of the Mexican citizens that are separated from their children and their children are put in cages at this very moment?
No, not at all, because their parents act for it. Again, the sins of the father are visited.
Fucking ridiculous.
That's a good tie. Good call.
It's what we accept when we accept cruelty.
Yeah.
It's what we do. We go to our Judeo-Christian roots and find some sort of justification for being shitheels. It's what we do.
Bigotry
just is.
And white supremacy. These sinister ideologies must be defeated. Hate has no place in America. Hatred warps the mind, ravages the heart, and devours the soul. We have asked the FBI to identify all further resources they need to investigate and disrupt hate crimes and domestic terrorism, whatever they need. We must recognize that the internet has provided a dangerous avenue to radicalize disturbed minds and perform demented acts. We must shine light on the dark recesses of the internet and stop mass murders before they start. The internet likewise is used for human trafficking, illegal drug distribution, and so many other heinous crimes. The perils of the internet and social media cannot be ignored, and they will not be ignored. In the 2 decades since Columbine, our nation has watched with rising horror and dread as one mass shooting has followed another, over and over again, decade after decade. We cannot allow ourselves to feel powerless. We can and will stop this evil contagion. In that task, we must honor the sacred memory of those we have lost by acting as one people. Open wounds cannot heal if we are divided. We must seek real bipartisan solutions. We have to do that in a bipartisan manner that will truly make America safer and better for all. First, we must do a better job of identifying and acting on early warning signs. I am directing the Department of Justice to work in partnership with local, state, and federal agencies, as well as social media companies, to develop tools that can detect mass shooters before they strike. As an example, the monster in the Parkland High School in Florida had many red flags against him, and yet nobody took decisive action. Nobody did anything. Why not? Second, we must...
Let me stop that. That's a fair point.
It's an incredibly fair point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the mother in El Paso of the shooter did notify the police. She did try to do...
Yeah.
And again, I'm against red flag laws as they are currently written.
Right.
But if a family member, you know, does, you know, files for a Baker Act, I mean, that could be a red flag that I could at least get behind. I'm not for anonymous reporting. Just let me tell you, this guy's a shitheel.
Yeah.
But we have mandatory reporters. Teachers are mandatory reporters. Mental health professionals, clergy. There are people who are mandatory reporters who only think that applies to, like, child abuse and sex abuse.
Yeah.
We could at least expand their ability
Right.
to say, hey, you know,
Something's
of
going
course
on
we
here.
can't do that with the Catholic Church because you could confess to, like, you know,
Literally anything.
fucking an infant goat on, you know, at high noon in Macy's window, and they, you know, here, say 5 Hail Marys and everything's better and I won't tell.
Right.
Right.
You know, so, but conceptually it works.
Right.
Woof. Woof. I made a friend, and anyone who knows me knows I came here just for the dog.
Well, we appreciate you sitting in on the show anyway.
I like the dog.
She's a sweetie.
Our
She's scruffy.
Our friend of the show, Britton, who has been on the show before.
Been a long time,
Been
Britton.
a long time, Britton. Where
Buddy,
you been?
you need to come back to Florida and visit and
Britton
come on the show.
is friends with someone who was the ex-girlfriend of the Dayton shooter. And the ex-girlfriend is particular. There have been many. But this ex-girlfriend of the Dayton shooter wrote an article for Medium and talked about how, like, they went out one time and she was like, "Look, this is a poly thing. Like, I'm with someone else, so I you know, is this a date? Like, what is this?" But their interactions were, you know, he would show her videos on his phone at the bar while they were drunk of just like insane, grotesque things.
Did you read the names of some of his songs?
No.
Don't.
Okay.
It just, I mean, I don't remember the actual title, but one was about, cunnilingus during menstruation.
Oh, good.
There was a lot of grossness mixed with misogyny.
Yeah.
And, whatever floats your boat. But you know what? When I hear that he showed her this at times, plural, at a bar.
Yeah.
How many times before you think this is gross and weird and I'm getting the fuck out of here?
So that's the thing. Her story was like, look, I'm not trying to excuse this guy.
But
obviously, but like they were both, they were in college together and they were both psych majors, and so she was like, it was no big deal. Like it was normal for us all to talk about our shit, like to talk about the mental health issues that we had going on, and like we just talked to each other. We were studying this stuff. It was no big deal for him to say, hey, check out this video, because it fell under the scope
possibly theoretical or educational instead of this is what it could also be grooming.
Sadly, now looking back, she's like, fuck me, those were all red flags.
Right.
Which is why psychologists rather than psych students might be more but we have abandoned the concept of the expert.
Yes.
We've determined that experts are all shit because they won't let us do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And therefore they are no longer worthy. I mean, that's another part of, the recent past and current that blows me away, that it could happen so fast. Where, everything from whether you should see a doctor, are all doctors, vaxxers trying to poison you, to just, how about science? Well,
Dan,
you know what I'm pissed about, right?
Dan, song titles: 6 Ways of Female Butchery and Sexual Abuse of a Teenage Corpse.
Oh, my.
At least it was a corpse.
All right, let's finish up this Cheeto in Chief.
I did
Cheeto in Chief.
Stop the glorification of violence in our society. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace.
Oh, sorry, I gotta stop.
No,
Video games?
really?
No. We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about this later. I have another story. Hold on.
Because this is here. David says, is he going to use this to control the internet now?
Yeah. Well, everything.
Well, he mentioned the internet in the previous segment.
Exactly.
It's the internet. It's video games.
It's everything but guns. It's mental health.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's everything. And when I say guns, and we'll come back to this, the straw man argument, and we had this conversation online. The straw man argument is that the gun just jumps off the table and starts fucking shooting people. Nobody says that. No one says that.
No.
What happens is the access to weapons of war, which are designed to kill as many people as possible, that's their function, are too easily accessible to too many people. That's the issue with the gun.
Well, I also think, we can separate the concept of mass shooting from mass killing. We have seen Timothy McVeigh prove that you can take out a whole shitload more people with a bomb.
Sure.
Right.
We saw in Japan that poison can be employed to take. But when someone says guns aren't responsible for mass shooting, I'm like, well, you know what? Nobody's doing like spitballs, okay? It's not. It's mass shooting.
It's a gun.
The gun is involved.
Somebody tried to argue with me, well, in countries where they have better gun laws, people get stabbed. Yeah, they probably do, but not like hundreds at a time.
And it's easier to defend yourself against.
Right. Is what to look at.
Right.
All right, let's get through this.
Okay.
Hold in your
without
puke.
a gun.
Today, for troubled youth to surround themselves with a culture that celebrates violence. We must stop or substantially reduce this, and it has to begin immediately. Cultural change is hard, but each of us can choose to build a culture that celebrates the inherent worth and dignity of every human life. That's what we have to do. Third, we must reform our mental health laws to better identify mentally disturbed individuals who may commit acts of violence and make sure those people not only get treatment, but when necessary, involuntary confinement. Mental illness and hatred pulls the trigger not the gun. Fourth, we must make sure that those judged to pose a grave risk to public safety do not have access to firearms, and that if they do, those firearms can be taken through rapid due process. That is why I have called for red flag laws, also known as extreme risk protection orders. Today, I'm also directing the Department of Justice to propose legislation ensuring that those who commit hate crimes and mass murders face the death penalty.
I have to stop here. There was so much there. The red flag laws, the
unbelievable hypocrisy and transference, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
But right. I don't think it is. I think that's actually root.
Yeah.
That is root. Okay. Something happened the other day with racism with me. And I just don't, I'm trying to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
That a lot of people who are racist don't really know they're racist and firmly believe they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Everyone's a little bit racist sometimes.
I'm not sure that's untrue. The question is whether you're aware of it and check it.
Yes,
you know? I mean, but just the other night, I guess somebody was unaware that my granddaughter's half Mexican. And, someone I've known for years. And I asked her, oh, yeah, your kids are going to high school? Yeah. Oh, no, they're going to this high school, not that high school. Oh, well, yeah, that other one is not a better school. And she goes, I don't worry about the black folks, but I don't want my daughter influenced by a bunch of spics.
Oh,
and she said it was the most,
This was an in-person conversation?
Okay, yeah, unfortunately.
Oh, my God.
And then she said, it's not like I'm racist.
Wait, no, actually.
That's the definition. Oh, my God.
But she meant it. And she had a multitude of people of color who were friends around her. She doesn't understand that what she said was... There's a whole bunch of people who think as long as I don't go, lighting crosses in front yards or gay bashing in public, how can you call me a homophobe? I never did this. They don't seem to understand that it starts with a mindset. But more importantly, I was in a room full of loud people, and all I said was, please don't. Just don't.
Right.
And I actually went in the bathroom and started to cry, not because I was upset that she said this horrible thing about my grandchild, but I cried out of sheer frustration that I couldn't pull her out of there and beat the fucking shit out of her.
Yeah.
I was furious that I had more manners to let her live than she even threw out, just caring who she how does she know what I think?
Right.
Aren't you supposed to, err on the side of caution when flinging phraseology about?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it just broke my heart. Now, somebody who I thought of as a friend that maybe, take her kids, my kids to the beach, not on your fucking life.
Yeah.
Okay?
We're done here. Thank you. Goodbye.
Have a nice life. I'll smile at you. We'll be polite. But now I know where your heart is. Yeah. And your heart isn't okay.
Yep.
Yeah. We have one of the radio shows back home when they wanted to let somebody off of the line because they were being a douchebag, they would politely say, fuck you. But what they would say would be like, good day, sir. Click.
Good day, sir.
So that's kind of, I've found myself on that end of the stick more on social media lately than I ever thought I would. And it scares me because I know that eventually the circles that I'm running in, it's going to happen, and I'm going to not know what to do with that in person, face to face.
Yeah.
The 50% thing. I mean, I can understand supporting the president for his policies.
Right.
I may disagree about why you support those policies, but I actually am not totally convinced about a lot of the things that show positive growth economically, but I also am aware I don't know shit about economics, so I could be wrong. So, let's give him the thumbs up on the economy. Let's give him the thumbs up on the things he does well. But you know what?
We didn't crash and burn the minute he took office.
Right.
That was a good thing.
Yeah. Korea hasn't bombed us yet.
I'm sure if I work at it, I can find more things that I'm okay. The attempted prison reform, although we still have private prisons, so that doesn't mean shit. Anyway,
if he could get rid of Betsy DeVos, that'd be a great thing.
Yeah, but he just replaced her with an even worse piece of shit.
Oh, well, I meant Betsy DeVos Jr.
Victoria has
no depth that he will not sing.
Yeah.
Victoria has the advice for you. Just say, you're in the South. Just say, bless your heart.
That's what my husband does to people.
Yeah.
In the North, we say, how unfortunate.
There was a great thing in the chat, and I want to go back to it before we get too far away from the.
Is this about the death penalty?
No.
Because that's why I stopped the video. Oh, okay.
Oopsie,
no,
my bad.
it's farther back than that. Victoria said, I love/loathe how you can clearly see the difference between his eyes and the rest of his face. The spray tan goggles are clearly doing their job, unlike the wearer.
So the reason I stopped the video when I did, and we got way off the fucking track.
Sorry.
Dan put very succinctly, the death penalty is not a deterrent. When will conservatives get that? Yes, we have the death penalty, like Texas, right? Who was that? Was it Jeff Foxworthy that we have the death penalty and some states are trying to get rid of it, but my state's putting in an express lane.
Right, yeah.
You know, and yet crime stills crime.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the death penalty were a useful deterrent to crimes like these, then that would be great, but the data just does not bore that out.
No, it doesn't, but at the same time, I don't look at the death penalty for its deterrent.
Right.
You know, in my worldview, I'm all good with punishment. And so I'm okay with that, but what I'm not okay with is it not being evenly distributed racially. What I'm not okay with is when appeals courts haven't changed their rules to allow proof of innocence at any stage to be admitted as an automatic appeal factor now that we have DNA. I also think that every death penalty case, after the judge and the jury have applied the death penalty, should go through civilian review based on the same concept as like the grand jury.
Yeah.
A fair representative placement of the people. But no, I like to see people hurt who did really shitty things, but not so much that I would fight for that, because the one time you're wrong is something I'd have a real hard time with. And I've seen it applied wrong. But I've also seen people say crazy shit like he was innocent when you can see it on video. You have his DNA, and he beat the living fuck out of a kid or a woman. And I have no problem on any given day killing that person. Not, I just don't. And I find a lot of people who are anti-death penalty haven't, understood that, victims of really, really serious crimes have nowhere to put that rage. They are told in church to be forgiving. They are told here to be forgiving. They go to therapy. They didn't do anything wrong. They have to do,
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a reason why it's such a prevalent trope. It is part of our makeup to at least fantasize about whoever fucked us over getting it back.
That's a really interesting perspective, because Sarah seems to not. She's like, let's not do the death thing.
No,
she's always been closer to that.
Yeah, okay.
You've always been closer to that side of the spectrum.
Yes.
And
rehabilitate.
I've always been like, you fuck me over, I'm gonna kill you myself.
You're gonna die.
No, you know what? I think if you do the right type of crime, then I'm not entirely sure that that's not the appropriate punishment. But I've also been victimized, where I think that how you that just clicked for me. Like, maybe that's why I process things that way, because I have had those experiences where I just want to kill somebody because of what you did to me.
Because you can't get whatever you lost there back.
Right.
All you can do is take it from the person who took it from you.
That is, I just never thought about it that way.
But we've been kept, again.
Yeah.
You're not good if you don't forgive. Well, it's not forgiveness when you've told me and programmed me to do it.
But who says that? The Bible?
Hey, most psychologists talk about the danger. Well, and yes, letting anger.
You don't want to stew.
But what are better way not to stew
Well,
than
yeah,
revenge.
exactly. No, I am right there with you, sister.
But again, if we can't apply it fairly, and more than that, hate crime, people like this who are doing mass shootings must go in, at least 80% of them saying, and I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they really give a fuck.
Well,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and if they're not going to die at the hands of a state official,
Suicide by cop.
Yes.
or whatever. I mean, there was a child rapist or somebody that just was recently killed in prison by prison mates.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if you've done these things, it's all over the news. You come in, everybody knows what you're in for. There's going to be some vigilante in there if it's not state mandated. Somebody's
only 4% of violent offenders are killed during the term of their incarceration. I trusted that number. I mean, I kept thinking somebody I knew was, they'll take care of it for me.
Right.
Can't wait, year after year. And then, what do you mean he's on parole? Okay, so I am sure he had some unpleasant evenings.
right.
But nowhere near what he deserved.
that's true.
It's just.
I mean, I know that the prisons are regulated, but that, like, maybe I'm thinking, people are going to
The
bust you up.
prisons I just also, the privatization of prisons takes all onus on anything from the death penalty to any kind of rehabilitation. They want to keep you in there as long as possible and get your ass back. They're not going to educate you. They're not going to tell you how to be a better person. They're not going to support those moves. They get paid per prisoner.
And if you're in Polk County, they take away your basketball hoop.
Did they take away a basketball hoop?
Oh.
We'll talk about
that later.
Let's get through
For
the
some
president.
reason, paying for the ledger isn't high on my list of
This is
budgetary
years old,
items.
but we'll talk about it later. I just found out about it.
The president has things to say.
That this capital punishment be delivered quickly, decisively, and without years of needless delay. These are just a few of the areas of cooperation that we can pursue. I am open and ready to listen and discuss all ideas that will actually work and make a very big difference. Republicans and Democrats have proven that we can join together in a bipartisan fashion to address this plague.
They have?
Last year, we enacted the Stop School Violence and Fix NICS Acts into law, providing grants to improve school safety and strengthening critical background checks for firearm purchases. At my direction, the Department of Justice banned bump stocks. Last year, we prosecuted a record number of firearms offenses. But there is so much more that we have to do. Now is the time to set destructive partisanship aside, so destructive, and find the courage to answer hatred with unity, devotion, and love. Our future is in our control. America will rise to the challenge. We will always have, and we always will, win. The choice is ours, and ours alone. It is not up to mentally ill monsters. It is up to us. If we are able to pass great legislation after all of these years, we will ensure that those who were attacked will not have died in vain. May God bless the memory of those who perished in Toledo. May God protect them. May God protect all of those from Texas to Ohio. May God bless the victims and their families. May God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, do you know how shallow I am? I heard that. I hadn't watched it before, and all I can think is, dude, you're a fucking billionaire. You can get, like, dental implants? What the hell is wrong with
Right?
you?
That's what I'm thinking this whole time. It looks like he's trying to talk without spitting his dentures out.
I mean, that would make me feel sorry for anyone else, but, you know, what part of winning was that?
Right.
You know? Dude.
And to your point about the low-hanging fruit of, like, oh, you said Toledo. There was some reporter shared out a picture from behind the scenes of the teleprompter, and the teleprompter said Texas and Ohio. So he was just trying to ad-lib off script.
It was
That's
too
all
long.
it was.
He's
it was
got 3 minutes in him of teleprompter. If you
Yep.
don't get him off, then he's going off script, and
Yeah.
It's going to be a shit show.
And you
It's
know
just
what?
the way-
That's,
So-
yeah. Anybody could have made that error.
Anybody could have. You know who else could have made that error? Joe fucking Biden.
Okay.
Oh, I saw that.
Grandpa Joe.
Jesus,
Speaking
Joe.
to donors.
That was it for me, though.
Speaking to donors at a high-dollar fundraiser in San Diego on Sunday night, Biden spoke of the tragic events in Houston today, and also in Michigan the day before.
Oh, shit.
So
He hired Trump's speechwriter. That's what happened.
And
No, I'm
Trump's
only joking.
speechwriter threw him under the bus.
listen, I do not want to go down this rabbit hole today. And I feel like we've teased this the last few episodes, but Biden is last on. I mean, okay, sorry,
wouldn't put him
Marianne
last.
Williamson is last on my list. Biden is real close.
And you know what? It's funny because I never felt that way
Until recently.
until very
Yeah.
very recently. And it's funny because even the whole scandal with him going behind the girl's ear, that did not even faze me. I'm like, whatever. Exactly.
Right. Well, what was his thing this week? It was
He said that poor kids are just as smart as
that's it.
white kids, which is a
Whoa.
Freudian slip of epic
Yes.
proportions.
yes.
And there was something else like it, but the bottom. My father is a Biden person,
Mhm.
and from his run way
Yeah.
long ago. So I've been raised to love Joe Biden.
Yeah. I mean, I love him, but I don't think he's got it right in this.
I
This is
miss-
not.
But you know what
He's-
scares me? I would vote for a potted plant.
Yes.
So my
Yes. Thank you.
I mean, so what I'm worried about is
Here, meet the new
who will
president of the United States.
You know what? I don't think it could do more damage.
I don't think so.
But I worry that he is not holding. We were hoping that he would get the middle-aged,
Yep.
likely to vote black voter.
Yep.
He would carry on
Right.
both the Obama legacy and what they
Right.
already knew from his behavior, if not his words.
Yeah.
If the man didn't talk and just work, we might have a better shot at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the progressives are not going to go for him, and I'm afraid if he's the candidate, they'll stay home,
Yeah.
and then we're fucked.
Mm-hmm. He
We
is.
again being
he
me, not
is
my
the 20
institution. Blah,
He
blah,
is
blah, blah.
my
He's
Hillary.
the 2020 Hillary.
I will say this
works.
again and again and again and again and again. If a crusty jizz-soaked gym sock is the nominee for the Democratic president, I will
carry a
vote
sign.
for Jizzy Gym Sock. Okay,
That
Vote for Jizzy.
sounds like a really fun band name.
right? I will vote for that
Can meet up with the Menstrual Munchers or whatever.
because anything will be better than another 4 years of whatever this is. But he is my Hillary. He really is.
You're
I-
afraid he's
I
the
was
one
a-
who's going to break up the vote?
I was
think
a
it's
Bernie
going to be
fan.
Bernie.
I was
Oh,
a
well.
Bernie fan in 2016. I voted for Bernie in the primary, but I was smart enough to know that in the general election, I had to vote for Hillary. Even though she wasn't my favorite, I didn't love everything about her. This is the thing that Democrats have a hard time with, liberals, progressive liberals. There's no perfect fucking candidate. They don't exist.
No, if you want someone who agrees with you on every single item, you have to run yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Yep.
You have to decide where your important lines are drawn.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the issues I'm going to vote on.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually think I haven't gotten. People will say, you just aren't happy that, Trump won. No, I accepted it the day it happened. I
Mhm.
saw the Electoral College. I understood. Did I like it? No.
No.
But I've never been trying to qualify that. And I haven't had to because I honestly blame it on Bernie. I really do. And it's like, if you had gotten your fucking ass out of that race.
Well, the
You and Jill
DNC kind of
Stein.
fucked him too.
Well, and I
mean,
don't
there
blame
was-
him for being mad, but you know what?
Yeah.
There's getting back for yourself and getting back for your whole country.
Mhm.
Thanks a
Yes.
lot, Bernie.
Yep. Yep.
Dude.
Dude.
And I'd say that no matter what.
Dan says what we were all thinking. Biden, quote, go to Joe 3330. Did you see the debate? At the end of the debate, they're like, everybody's like, go to Kamala2020.com or whatever.
Oh, I
like,
saw
they
that.
were
That
all
was
talking
horrible.
about, like, they were trying to pitch go to our website to learn more
And
or
he
whatever.
got his
Do you
from-
want?
And he got
Stephanie?
his.
Give her that bottle.
He got
Keep talking,
his.
but hand the bottle over.
Hey, listen, hold on. Before you do that,
What?
I have honey whiskey, too.
Which will probably be better with iced tea.
Yeah.
I have honey whiskey. Yeah.
Trade ya.
Yeah, lime rum will probably not be best with
yeah.
sweet tea.
Yeah, honey whiskey will work, though.
That might be really yummy.
Yeah, and so he was trying to, like, plug his website or contact information or whatever, and he totally fucked it up because he's a little old man who doesn't know how technology works.
Right.
Okay, moving on. So,
but you'll vote for him.
So I will.
In a heartbeat.
No, that's
right?
the thing. If he is the Democratic nominee, I will go in, hold my nose, bite my lip, and punch the box for Joe Biden. I will. I'll do it because I understand the damage that would be caused if I don't.
Do you know what would change my mind? If we could get rid of McConnell. If you could get rid of McConnell, it really doesn't matter who's in the... You're
right. You're absolutely right.
That it really doesn't matter who's in the White House. Well,
he is blocking all...
Ever since Merrick Garland, I have never forgiven him for Merrick Garland, and I never will, because and then it's called even the McConnell Doctrine.
Yep.
And then you try. How do you overturn your own fucking doctrine, dude? I mean, how do you do that?
You become.
How do you even
become a hypocrite? Like how? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Have you seen who's running against him? The wonderful veteran woman who they buried in effigy the day of the mass shooting.
Yes. Oh my God, I saw that.
Because
that was fucked up.
That's the party of love and reconciliation, and yeah.
Yep.
But we're the bad guys. We're the ones who are out of our mind.
Oh yeah, they had like a
graveyard
set up.
They put Merrick Garland in there too.
Yep.
They're proud of this.
Yep.
Oh, and that was the same day that they all got caught with the cutout of AOC and feeling her up and breaking a piece off of
There was
me.
one where they had an
Who are these monsters? He's talking about monsters.
White people.
And he's got more monsters in his
but
administration than...
They had an AOC cutout. Oh, here. You can
my
you can have my poster. They had an AOC cutout, and there was like a group of them around it, like choking her.
And having her boobs. And the tagline was, break me off a piece of that. And they're all in their little Mitch shirts.
Oh my
and
God.
You know what? You're not going to believe what the GOP actually said, the campaign. They actually used the phrase, boys will be boys.
Yep.
So, hey, we got a whole new generation of rapists coming up. Yay!
Okay, stop. Full stop. Weren't they... This... oh my God. Never mind.
Here's the thing.
I lost it.
It's so,
I can't. This
but
is so
here's
stupid.
The thing. We're all preaching to the converted.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of a pointless endeavor. I mean, if you don't think that that's not just offensive, but creating a potential legal issue, if you have a daughter and you don't look at that and you say, that's completely fucked up, but I'm still going to,
Right.
Nothing we're going to say until it is your daughter.
We elected a pussy grabber.
Yeah. Hey, but the economy's great.
I haven't noticed. I'm willing to accept it, but I haven't noticed.
See, that's the thing and I want to move on because we're only on we're 2/3 the way down page 1.
Do you have anything we can actually fix?
Out of 6 pages.
Oh God, yeah, right.
Just something, maybe somebody's lawn. I don't know.
That was the beginning of the beginning of the show, and we talked about hearth and how we can help them.
Oh,
yes.
You know what?
Yeah.
See, there's my jaded ass.
Folkatheist.org.
Totally pissing on that. Oops.
I forgot what I was going to say now.
You were moving on.
Back to the list.
Okay, let's move. No, I was going to say something else, but then I lost it.
Oh no.
Fine. So let's move on. So let's go around the circuit then and see how other leaders are weighing in after these awful shootings. First to Texas. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, enemy of church-state separation, who blamed abortion, video games, and unarmed teachers after an incident in May, appeared on Fox and Friends this week saying...
Do aborted fetuses commit mass shootings?
They do.
Apparently.
Damn.
Quote, I look at, on Sunday morning, when most of your viewers right now, half the country, are getting ready to go to church, and yet tomorrow, we won't let our kids even pray in our schools. End quote. And later said, quote, as long as we continue to only praise God and look at God on a Sunday morning and kick him out of the town squares and our schools on the other 6 days of the week, what do we expect? What do we expect? There's no excuse for this. Well, 3 things, Danny boy. First,
Just 3.
Well, there's no excuse for is the continued lack of action, killing after killing after killing after killing. Yes. Second, when you say half the country is getting ready for church on a Sunday morning, you're ignoring that half the country isn't. And finally,
a rather salient point.
Nobody said your kids can't pray in school. What the law says is that you or a school official can't go in and lead them in prayer. That's a big difference. And don't think for a minute that there aren't people. There were people praying while bullets were flying last weekend.
Sure.
Fat lot of good it did them.
Yeah, right.
And where was your God? Too busy golfing? Does your God say, well, Dan, if you'd only let schools force prayer again, then I'd start protecting people? Because if that's your God, fuck your God.
Yep. In a nutshell. But more importantly, again, let's go back to when they actually did the Supreme Court decision that ended organized prayer in school. It's actually very similar to this one, insofar as those who were pro-prayer felt that their kids would not be allowed to pray in school.
Right.
And it's even a narrative that 40, 50, 60 years later maintains. That's not the case. Your student can pray pretty much wherever they want if they do it silently.
Yep.
In the restroom, they can go to the guidance counselor. No one will stop your kid if they say, unless it's in the middle of the SAT, okay?
Right.
They get a little hostile about that shit.
Class.
But they can say, look, I'm feeling this way. And just like you can say, I need to go to the guidance counselor, you can say, I need to go pray. And if you say, with a couple other kids, hey, at lunch, we want to go pray, no one will stop you. Do you know what they will stop you from doing? Anything else religious from any other religion. So you guys still have the monopoly.
Yep.
Calm the fuck down.
I mean, I organized a meet me at the pole when I was in high school because I was a super Christian kid. And
You're such a geek.
I know.
I would have slashed your tires. But
moving on, former Arkansas governor and twice failed Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee weighed in.
Of course.
Writing on his blog. And let me just say, that's how you know you're washed up, when you still have a blog and it's 2019.
Hey, fuck you, bud.
Now, this is a fucking gold mine, right? Then from the
Huckabee's blog or
from the Huffington Post.
Oh my God.
Despite all those who are denouncing the idea of prayers for the victims, do a Google search for thoughts and prayers are not enough and see how many hits you get. I will continue to pray for the victims and their families and for an end to this mindless violence, and I hope you will too. In fact, I would posit that the lack of thoughts and prayers is probably the single biggest factor in what is behind them, end quote.
Didn't he run for president a long time ago?
I think he ran
twice and failed, yes.
And did he pray that he would win?
Probably.
So why does he think his prayers are going to work now if they didn't work then?
Well, apparently nobody punished him or his pine pig of a daughter when his son killed a puppy. So that much worked.
Yeah.
You know, you go back to the well.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, no, he's a complete piece of shit.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's a comedian. If you ever follow or see his stuff on Twitter, it's like Henny Youngman without a sense of humor 200 years from now.
Nothing worse
It's
than an
really
old white
bad.
guy that thinks they're funny when they're
a
not.
funny Jew, and it's not happening at all. No. He's like one of those. They're not even bad puns. They're not puns, but he thinks they're puns. It's really bad.
It's like when our son tells a joke that makes absolutely no sense.
Right?
He goes, jokes aren't supposed to make sense. That's why it's funny.
Yes, they are.
No. They have to make sense.
I'll send my granddaughter over here. She'll just end any phrase with, get it?
Yeah, yes. What the hell?
And I'm like, not really. But I'm sure it was very good. Where do you come from? And now I'm all,
Huckabee also said mass shootings will never stop until, quote, kids are brought up once again to believe that we are all made in the image of God, that life is sacred, and superficial differences, like skin color, are meaningless, end quote.
they could learn that in science class.
Yeah.
With unequivocal evidence to back it up. And in fact, if they did that races are no different than, actually, they're even different than species of dog. It is so infinitesimal.
Yep.
The different, and in 10,000 years you could change it just by environmental considerations.
Right.
It is a construct. It does not mean anything. And they could learn that in science, but no, because that might indicate an opposing view on evolution, which, as you know, I am pissed as fuck about, because I am old enough to know that the people going into medical school in 4 years are the ones who are going to be cutting me open and dealing with me in about 20 years, when I am at my most vulnerable and need the best care. And it won't be happening here, because these fuckers aren't going to learn evolution or any other basis of science. So I'm going to make sure I won't expose myself to that. That is insane. How are these kids going to get in college? How are they going to... Who are these people?
Yep. There's a whole conversation there about what's going on in the Florida thing.
Gizzy, come over here.
She's being kind of a bitch. I think she's ready for bed.
Might be.
We're coming up on a break here, I promise.
You? Because I'm doing the potty dance.
I know. Look, I loaded an extra long break so that we can all pee and smoke or whatever we need to do. Huckabee also criticized Beto O'Rourke for calling Trump a racist. His reason? Quote, "I don't see how someone who has repeatedly denied being a racist can be an open, avowed racist." End quote.
What?
Like your daughter denied being
this
a liar?
This is the I have a black friend thing. Like, that's what this is.
But,
okay.
Yeah, but people lie about whether or not they are good and have good intentions all the time. I didn't steal that shit, as the stuff falls out of your pants. Like, just because somebody says they are not something.
Right.
Their word doesn't mean shit. Their actions prove what they are and what they're not.
Well, there's also a little thing called the court record. And if you look at New York City, various lawsuits, etc., pretty much because of the way he treated both black workers and people who had tried to get into his real estate holdings, fucker's a racist, okay?
Yeah.
That's how he lost. He lost these lawsuits. But you know what? I keep hearing the same thing, though. Well, he's a billionaire. That must mean he's smart. No, it doesn't. It means he's cunning. It means that, people cut him slack because they have no clue that being a billionaire doesn't mean shit.
And he started with a ton of money.
And his daddy bailed him out. Yeah. After his daddy gave him all that money, his daddy bailed him out how many times?
Yeah.
Idiots.
David,
why? If I try to go bankrupt, I am taking advantage of the taxpayer's tit. He does it as a business, and somehow it means... Gosh, he's savvy with taxes.
Right?
David Moy at HuffPost writes, quote, "We're sending out thoughts and prayers that Huckabee will figure out that denying you're a racist does not count as proof that what you do and say are not racist. Lucky for you, Huckabee still makes appearances on Fox News, so you don't have to go and read his blog."
Oh, no.
Oh, God, really?
What are you doing to us? That doesn't seem nice.
She's trying to torture us.
If I can make it
Damn
work.
fine job.
Oh, I hear a baby crying. I gotta go.
Just one last comment personally. How did you see the news on Saturday, you go to bed, you wake up Sunday morning, and I think so many people had the shared reaction, governors, like, not again, not twice in a span of 13 hours.
The El Paso shooting was a gut punch to begin with. So many innocent people just out Saturday shopping. And then you wake up Sunday morning and you see this addendum to it in Dayton. And it's just devastating. Emotionally, I think for every American, it's just devastating. We just don't want to believe that fellow citizens would do this to people who have harmed them in no way. And that's what's troubling. We realize that we could be the victim. It could be us. But by the grace of God, it would have been. So... yeah, it's a horrible thing, but let's be real clear. The common denominator in all of this is not the particular weapon. It's the hate inside the heart. It's the loss of morality. It's that disconnecting from a God who values all people and who would never let me do that to another person, because I would be basically doing it to God and to myself, to just destroy another human life. That's just not how we're hardwired. from the Father above. That's what I believe hurts me the most, is that we've got a lot of our country that are utterly disconnected from any sense of identity with their Creator and with His love for them and His love for the people that they hate.
Wrong. Wrong.
And go.
First of all, God would never, like, if I was, what? God told Abraham to kill his own son. God flooded the earth. Like your God in your Bible did all these horrible things, supposedly, according to you, but...
Go ahead. I'm stuck on the grace of God thing.
Well, yeah, but, like, I'm sorry. Where is the disconnect there? Because you cannot tell me that if these people had God in their lives, they wouldn't be doing these evils. And convince me that if these people had God of your Bible in their lives, same God who did all those evil, like, there's no.
More importantly, first, he said Dayton was an addendum.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the relatives of those 9 people didn't feel like they were a secondary story.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, fuckface. Next. Then he said, by the grace of God, it wasn't us, which implies by the lack of grace of God, it was them.
Yeah. Right?
Oh, you know something we don't know? What did they do wrong?
They were close, well...
I just, whenever you say God can fix something, if you accept omnipotence, the first thing I wonder is, well, then why did he break it?
Right. Why has it gotten this bad to begin with?
Why'd it have to get bad at all?
Right.
If you had, the infinity stones of the universe, why would you allow it just so that they could prove their faith and stroke your dick? I mean, isn't that essentially what it's all about, faith, to prove your faith? Well, why didn't he just program us faithful then? Fuck it. If his ego requires that sort of adoration, couldn't he fix that? But apparently punishment weighs into it. It has to be. What is it that would make so many godly people? I always think something should shake them. Oh, God's there with you. If he could have been here 5 minutes ago, I wouldn't need him right now.
Right.
And I don't understand why they don't.
Where they disconnect. Why don't you see it that way?
If
like,
you can fix it, why is it broken? If this person did it because of this, why didn't God? If God is omnipotent, if we start with that premise, nothing else really matters. He's either in shit, or cruel, or maybe not so omnipotent and therefore not a creator. Maybe
not
science.
So real
That's
at all.
the Epicurean problem of evil.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's any more to this. I think we exhausted it.
Can't we
Good
just
enough.
hit him with a stick?
So then I want to talk
That's
about.
A great idea.
So then I want to talk about
Piñata.
Beto. If what you liked about Trump is his tell it like it is, straight laced whatever, you're gonna love.
Beto cursing his head off.
Fucking Beto.
I've heard about this. I have not heard it yet.
Great.
I've
only heard about it.
With 0 fucks left to give.
Am I going to, fall in love even more?
Here's Democratic presidential candidate from Texas, Beto O'Rourke.
What do you think? Shit he's been saying? He's been calling Mexican immigrants rapists and criminals. I don't know, members of the press, what the Hold on a second. It's these questions that you know the answers to. I mean, connect the dots about what he's been doing in this country. He's not tolerating racism. He is promoting racism. He's not tolerating violence. He's inciting racism and violence in this country. So, I don't know what kind of question that is. You guys know the answer to this question.
This is a vigil for the people that we've lost.
0 fucks Beto is my favorite Beto.
He's like my hero now.
It's like the first time I've actually given him credence, but...
Right?
I am old enough to think I don't want any candidate. I mean, right now he's upset and he has right to be, so I'm going to let him slide.
It's his.
But I would like
state.
some semblance of normalcy, even if it is shaded truth.
Right.
Because it shows the most respect to the most people who you are governing over. I would like to see some manners and civility restored. And this is not obviously the case for that. And given what he saw and the fact that he's from there, and then he took such a hit from Trump later on the makes a Hispanic name so he can appeal.
Right.
Dude, he's from El Paso, you fucktard.
Yeah.
Really? You think, you know.
And that's not a name he made up just so he could run.
Apparently it's Robert. Everybody says Beto.
Yeah, but that's been his nickname for like years.
For his life.
His whole life.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not like,
it's not douchebag has been Donnie's, but he didn't use that.
Well, that's his problem.
Right.
This is a good point to maybe break in and just say, like, my top 5 in no particular order. Warren, Sanders.
Who's Warren Sanders?
I actually thought that was delivered so well.
I'm not a fan of.
Oh, hi, puppy.
I was an early Kamala adopter. I was an early Harris fan, but now not so much.
I've seen some things. I've heard some things. I'm kind of like,
she's going to reach that Biden audience that we're going to lose.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just saying. And she's a prosecutor. I like those
I'm
bitches.
not going to finish my 5.
Come on,
just let me say, whoever wins, crusty jizzy sock 2020. Vote for the Democratic nominee.
But Keith said he's not giving his sock up for that.
Okay,
so.
well.
I'm sure you can make another.
And finally on this topic, before we take a break and move on, I do want to talk out more of the gun debate. I think we covered a lot of it. But this news story dropped right as we were going to air, so I wanted to include it. CNN reports that Walmart is doing the, opposite of what needs to be done. Walmart, as you may know, sells a wide assortment of products, 2 of which are video games and guns.
Which one are they not selling now?
Well, they've decided they're selling both, but they're pulling the displays of violent video games from their stores. But they'll still sell you the guns, they'll still sell you the games, and they'll still display the guns.
Wow. They really took a stand.
Right? Like, what is that going to do?
I would have no problem with them being honest and saying, we're not changing shit. We're a retail outlet. You fix your family. Mm-hmm. I'm good with that.
Yeah, right?
I run a business.
I'm going to tell you, as somebody who worked in retail for years and years and years, the only person who is happy about that announcement is the person who has to change out the damn video games displays all the time. Because now that's one less fucking poster they got to go change out when the new lines come out.
I believe you.
It's totally true. Nobody else gives a shit.
I'm going to shop at Walmart now that they do that.
Right? Nobody's even, that's not even, people that go in there to buy the video games aren't looking for the displays anyway.
I don't think people going in there are going to be looking at displays, period. I think for a while we're
you're
all
not
going to be
going
looking
to
over
Walmart.
our shoulders.
You're not going to Walmart for the displays.
No, absolutely not. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break.
Good.
I know everybody's waiting for it.
Pee.
We'll come back. I got to pee. We may sneak outside. And then there's some church-state separation stuff that we are going to talk about.
I like that.
Are you going to go back outside?
Yes.
Okay. Go to the front door.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. Okay, so we'll be back with Ygraine, and we'll be back after this. You're listening to SarahTalk. Jesus into your heart. Now it's time to bring him into your home with Flat Jesus. Take photos of Flat Jesus in questionable situations and share with the hashtag FlatJesus. Flat Jesus comes in 4 fun styles. Color your own Jesus, historically accurate brown Jesus, TSA approved white Jesus, and everybody's favorite, white Republican Jesus with American flag, assault rifle, and bald eagle accessories. But don't wait, apostates. Download your very own Flat Jesus right now at SarahTalk.com/Jesus. That's SarahTalk.com/Jesus now for your free Flat Jesus. The Bible says the earth is flat. Maybe Jesus was too.
Are you ready for your first card? As I look at the set I placed down for you, I see an interesting things rising. Some of it has to deal with love and money and changes, and hopefully they're going to be for the better. Now, your first card represents your situation. Maybe some problems you've been having. Maybe a little bit about yourself. Your first card is sorrow. This card is letting us know that there is some type of disruption in your life. Not that it's a big deal, but this card is giving off a strange vibe of anxiety. Actually, this card is warm in my hand. Oh, now caller, if you listen here, I'm seeing in the cards. Oh, yes, the 45 of mangoes. The 45 of mangoes card says you're going to go on to Patreon and subscribe because there is nothing better than giving when receiving. What will you ask me? Find out now and I see for you. Call me now for a free tarot reading.
Hello, my friends. This is Sister Mary Atheist of the Church of Religious Avoidance down here in Bumblefuck, Alabama. Now, my friends, my people, my brothers and sisters, do you feel lost? Do you feel that swelling urge to be a part of something better? Well, let the word of SarahTalk help you. If you've never known the word SarahTalk, learn it, live it, love it. Can I get an amen? No? Good, 'cause we don't do that shit around here. My friends, we must all remember that the good word of SarahTalk doesn't happen for free. So get yourself over to patreon.com/SarahTalk and help us spread the word. Plant that seed and help it grow into secular, peer-reviewed empirical evidence for the good of all. In the name of the Sarah, the Becca, and the Science-Based Podcast, amen, hallelujah, and holy shit.
In today's health-conscious society, you have many beverage choices. But do you know what's in all of them? So much sugar, sodium, and things you can't even pronounce. Dihydrogen monoxide. What's that? Sometimes you wish you just had a simple, more elegant solution for your beverage needs. Introducing H2O, the first ever chemical-free thirst quencher. H2O is simple, simply composed of 3 portions of 2 elements, hydrogen and oxygen. H2O means chemical-free, unlike water, which is filled with all sorts of shit. When we tested H2O, we found traces of no other elements. So pure, the bottle may as well be fucking empty, with all the same nutritional content as a breath of cool mountain air. First widely featured on Goop.com, actress Gwyneth Paltrow revealed that she exclusively uses H2O for her vaginal steaming process. After all, why use water when you can steam it with H2O? So now we invite you to run out to your local garden hose and drink that shit. Remember, it's not water, it's H2O.
H2O bottled by Flint Bottling Company in Flint, Michigan. Product not actually endorsed by Goop or Gwyneth Paltrow. Please do not use H2O for vaginal steaming, or better yet, please do not steam your vagina. H2O is actually just water. Water is a set of molecular compounds. It's a chemical. Everything is a chemical.
I was feeling so alone.
I was going through a really difficult time.
I was embarrassed and a little scared.
I didn't want to bother anyone.
I didn't think they'd understand.
I thought it would just make things worse.
It was tough at first, but I did it. It ended up taking a huge weight off my shoulders.
I feel a lot better.
I'm glad I asked for help.
I asked for help.
I asked for help.
I asked my teacher. I asked my aunt.
I asked my dad.
I asked my mom.
I asked the Trevor Project.
Now, I feel like I can get through this.
I know that I'm brave.
You can do this.
You can do this.
You can do this.
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
Whatever it is, ask for help.
If you're thinking about suicide or need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. Trained counselors are there to help 24/7. Ask for help.
What happens when you're an atheist living inside the Canadian Bible Belt? If you're like me, you gather some friends and take to the airwaves. So I invite you to take a left to the valley and find out where you stand in this world. Follow us on iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, Stitcher, Blog Talk, or leftinvalley.com. Atheists, Skeptics, and Humanist Radio, no God required.
Hey everyone, this is Dan Hogan from Mesa, Arizona, and thanks for listening to SarahTalk Podcast. You know, you're privileged to listen to the show. Not everyone gets to listen. I mean, the dead are not allowed to listen. They don't know what they're missing. Do you know why? Because they're dead. But if you're alive and listening, thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show.
And we're back. A little late there. Every time this happens, this reminds me of like when I was in radio, and I know I've talked about this before. When I worked in radio, we had national news from the top of the hour to 6 after, and then we had local news from 6 after to 10 after. So I had 6 minutes at the top of the hour to run out back and smoke a cigarette, and then get back in
or
time, and refill my coffee and all of those things to get back in time to, you know.
So do you have a bush next to your smoking
local news? No.
Corner to?
No.
Whiz out the back? No.
Nope, didn't have that. So
how unfortunate! You weren't a very good planner then.
So a little editing to do tonight. Victoria had to go. Bye, Victoria.
No. Bye, Victoria.
Victoria said, "Dear Congress, it's the guns, asshole." I love Victoria.
A reductionist.
So before we get back here, we want to thank our patrons who give us their hard-earned money to keep this stupid show going. And we want to thank our top patrons, declined patron Russell. Wombology, the study of Wumbo, it's first grade. I still don't really understand, John, the point of that. And surprise, we did a podcast this week. Dan, you're funny.
Oh, Dan,
we love you.
You're hilarious.
Thank you all so very much for supporting what we try to do here. So there are some other things that are in the news that I wanted to touch on. And before we move on, I feel like I know we didn't address the mass shooter gun issue in much detail, much more detail than we wanted to. But again, I feel like I'm at the point of do something. Anything, Mitch McConnell, get your ass out of the way and just try something. Yeah. Again, even if it's the wrong thing, right? Once upon a time, we thought, hey, you know what we should do? We should make drinking booze illegal, and that'll solve something. And it didn't work. And so we changed it back. Do something.
We can always change it back.
Yeah.
Right.
If we're allowed to let our Congress people have votes that can go to a Senate that will look at it and consider it.
Right.
But until that happens, actually, we can't say authoritatively we can change it back.
Yeah.
Because lately that's not the case. But I will give you credit. And I wish the press would follow. We need the press to tell us about these things. We need the information. What we don't need is the glamorizing of the shooters.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Stop using phrases like manifesto.
Oh, yeah.
Stop using phrases that somehow make people think that, well, first of all, that they've had an original thought, because they haven't. Nobody has. I mean, we've been around too long for that shit.
Yep.
And what you do is enforce the notion, and especially for people who do believe in an afterlife, that there is some sort of glory or fame, even if they die, that will transcend this. And we have, and we've even proven it with our president. You know, we put a celebrity in the White House. Celebrity is all important. Don't make celebrities out of these people.
Yes.
Even if they're anti-celebrity, the attention level is exactly the same. So I actually appreciate that we talked about the issue.
Yeah. This is why I love NPR so much, because they will focus on, let me tell you about the people who died.
Right.
We're going to spend a shit ton of time talking about who these people were and the lives that they led and and I think that is so much more important than let's, repeat the shooter's name on air over and over and over again and give them because we know that copycat crimes happen, and you get these people on TV and we're talking about the shooter and how we talk about them and we show their picture and we talk about their name, and then you have people who are like, for whatever reason, I want that for myself. And then they go out and do something stupid in response.
That's winning. And I think the reason you had one right on the tail of the other is this notion that winning at all costs. You know, well, he had this many. Let me see how many I can get. Really, I'm not going to let him win the title.
Yep.
I mean, and then we just heard the president, frankly, use that very terminology.
Yeah.
We will win. Win what? This isn't a game. There are no prizes. This is how to survive in a civilized society.
Yep.
You don't get brownie points for doing the right thing, nor should you. It should be normal.
Right. One thing we didn't talk about was the Texas shooter had posted a manifesto on 8chan about, being a right-wing crazy nut job. Meanwhile, the shooter in Dayton was retweeting and supporting Elizabeth Warren. This is not a political divide. There are people on all sides of every issue that, for whatever reason, something happens and they do this heinous thing.
Last-ditch effort to be something.
Right. And that's why I come back to mental health. When we can get to the point where so let me nuance my position on this. I believe that we should make it so that anyone in the country should be able to walk into any mental health clinic and say, I need help, and get help, regardless of ability to pay, regardless of insurance, regardless of citizenship, regardless of any other issue. You should be able to walk into any clinic in this country and say, I need your help, and get it. And in order to get to that point, we also have to destigmatize mental health in this country so that people feel comfortable to go and say, I have a problem.
Yeah.
Right? When I was a kid, we didn't talk about this shit. It was something that you kept to yourself, and my God, if it got out in the community, that was, you don't want that. And I think, I hate to make everything into a generational issue of the silent generation and the boomers needing to die off for any progress to happen, but that's where we are. It really is, because you look at a lot of these millennials, we call them. I am friends with so many people on Facebook, and my feed is full of people talking about this is something that I'm struggling with my mental health, and they're fine to talk about it out loud. And you're seeing celebrities coming out and saying, here's a mental health thing that I struggle with. And they're fine talking about that out loud. And the more we do that, the Overton window shifts, and mental health becomes destigmatized, and eventually we'll get to a point where people will be okay to walk into a place and recognize the red flags in yourself and say, hey, I'm not right. And I need something. I need you. I need you to help me. And if we can get to that point, I think that's a big piece of the puzzle of solving this problem of mass shootings and other crimes. Like, if people can work on the healing of themselves, and we don't look down upon them and we don't shame them, I think that's a big part of the solution. Anyway.
Gizmo agrees.
Yeah.
She was saying, yes.
Puppy.
Amen, amen, amen. That's what she was saying.
All right, so here's some other things that I picked out in the news to talk about. And let's start with fake historian David Barton. On his Wall Builders Live program, he tried to make the case that Christians have more rights than under the First Amendment than secular people.
The reason this is significant is when you look at the First Amendment and the 5 rights that are guaranteed to be protected by the First Amendment. The First Amendment doesn't give you those rights. God gives you those rights. The government is supposed to protect those rights. It's interesting that there is free speech. But in addition to free speech, there is also free exercise of religion, which often involves free speech. For me to exercise my faith means I will speak about it, I will live it out, I will activate it, I will do it. And by the way, I have the right to assembly, so I can get together with other believers and we can act out our faith and do it. So when you look, secular speech is protected by the Constitution, but religious speech has several protections in the First Amendment. It's not like the same as somebody has the right to say, I dislike Trump. Okay, your free speech is protected. Okay, so what I have in the First Amendment is I really have my religious speech / expression protected by 3 clauses. So it really gets more attention or more protection, if you will, than just normal secular speech. But what the decision did back in 1980 said, no, religious speech is equal to secular speech, and you get no more protection than anybody else gets. Well, that's not what the First Amendment gave me. It gave me more protection because I get my speech, but if it's religious, I get it twice, and if it's religious with others, I get it 3 times
now,
protected.
how is it religious?
Now, this other voice is...
Holy I'm sorry.
I know.
Whoa.
Listen, this...
I don't do math normally. This really is fucking with me.
This other voice is David's son, Tim, who is trying to clarify that these rights are equal, but obviously David had none of that.
Just with others now, because let's unfold this a little bit, right? Because we have the freedom of speech, you have the freedom of religion or expression, the free exercise thereof. So we would say you have speech and free exercise. So those are 2 clauses from the First Amendment. So what's the third one you're saying? If we are religious with others, we're also protected there. What's the third one?
You have the right peaceably to assemble. That means you can get with others, and you can get with others who believe what you believe, and you can express your beliefs as a group. So whether
the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and the freedom of assembly, as a Christian, it actually protects you in all 3 of those aspects. Right. So it's not just you have the freedom of speech, but you also have the free expression of religion, and you have the right to assemble with other people who believe like you believe, as you mentioned, as long as it's peaceably. So there really are multiple protections of religious faith in the First Amendment.
While religious folks have at least 3 different forms of protection in the First Amendment for their speech, secular folks have their protections as well for speech and assembly, but they just don't have the same religious motivation.
Yeah, arguably they have the exact same protections that a religious person does. It's just that if they choose not to have a religion or exercise their religion, they don't have to. But the same protection is there for everybody. But this is where, as a Christian, you don't lose the protection because you're a Christian.
And you actually get added protection because it singles out your religious expression. And that's a level of protection the Founding Fathers wanted to make sure that religious folks had. And so they singled that out to give, if you will, added protection if you're a religious folk. So what happened in that decision in 1980 was the court said, no, religious folks, secular folks, everybody, you get the same protection. Well, that's not what the First Amendment says. The First Amendment says, hey, religion is so vitally important that you get added special protection.
This is a...
Ygraine just vomited in her mouth.
A lot. Okay, I'm not great at math, but no.
Yeah, right?
No.
This is a microcosm of a bigger issue, right? You have more rights as a Christian? How the hell do you come up with this?
I believe he's saying because he's employing religion to each of those rights.
Right.
it kind of doubles it. Two negatives make a positive.
Right.
I remember that from third grade. Anything else, I'm a little bleary on.
I believe the expression might be that he is delusional as all fuck.
Right.
Clinical. Clinical. It's just more of that bullshit about America being a Christian nation.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the founding fathers wanted you to have all these rights. Really?
No, they were quite specific. It wasn't like they couldn't write the word Christian.
Right.
Right.
They were familiar with the terminology. They opted against it.
Right.
Quite specifically.
Uh-huh.
And they also wrote really horrible things about the Bible, which I love a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, you can... So-and-so said this, 200 years ago, and I can apply it to virtually any whatever.
Sure.
And I accept that. But you're fuck nuts, and no, you can't have that. No. Sorry. Goodbye.
I would point everyone to The Founding Myth.
Such a good book.
By Andrew Seidel from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. The Founding Myth, Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American. If you want a good historical perspective on these rights that were imbued to us, and how religion played its role in that, that's what I would recommend. You read this book.
But God wrote that down.
No.
He said so. Those are the rights God gave you.
Keith says, I want the added protection plan, please.
Right? Do you pay like $8
pay
more like
that,
the Walmart?
Right.
No, when the collection plate comes around, you...
No wonder I'm unfamiliar with it.
It's a minimal fee. You got to say your prayers, too.
Well, then I'm definitely screwed, aren't I?
Yeah, aren't we all?
People invite me to weddings and wait for the place to come down, so, never know.
Now, the other side of this crazy coin, and this one has been making the rounds in my online circles, there is a group of Christian leaders who have come together to warn against the rise of Christian nationalism in the U.S. And I want to read you their statement, but first, just a little on who these leaders are. And I'm not going to read off all of their names and titles because that would take forever. But you have people in leadership.
There's that many of them?
There are.
Wow.
Look, you have people in leadership positions from the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, Catholic Social Justice, the Episcopal Church, Alliance of Baptists, United Church of Christ, Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, the Presbyterian Church, American Baptist Churches USA, the Baptist Joint Committee, National Council of the Churches of Christ, and there's an option on their website for other Christians to sign on to their statement as well. So they've released this statement. If you're a Christian, it does ask you, you have to check the box, yes, I identify as a Christian, that you can sign on to this statement. So it's not just these national leaders. Here's the statement. As Christians, our faith teaches us that everyone is created in God's image and commands us to love one another. As Americans, we value our system of government and the good that can be accomplished in our constitutional democracy. Today, we are concerned about a persistent threat to both our religious communities and our democracy, Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism seeks to merge Christian and American identities, distorting both the Christian faith and America's constitutional democracy. Christian nationalism demands Christianity be privileged by the state and implies that to be a good American, one must be Christian. It often overlaps with and provides cover for white supremacy and racial subjugation. We reject this damaging political ideology and invite our Christian brothers and sisters to join us in opposing this threat to our faith and to our nation. As Christians, we are bound to Christ, not by citizenship, but by faith. We believe that people of all faiths and none have the right and responsibility to engage constructively in the public square. Patriotism does not require us to minimize our religious convictions. One's religious affiliation, or lack thereof, should be irrelevant to one's standing in the civic community. Government should not prefer one religion over another, or religion over non-religion. Religious instruction is best left to our houses of worship, other religious institutions, and families. America's historic commitment to religious pluralism enables faith communities to live in civic harmony with one another without sacrificing our theological convictions. Conflating religious authority with political authority is idolatrous and often leads to oppression of minority and other marginalized groups, as well as the spiritual impoverishment of religion. We must stand up to and speak out against Christian nationalism, especially when it inspires acts of violence and intimidation, including vandalism, bomb threats, arson, hate crimes, and attacks on houses of worship against religious communities at home and abroad. Whether we worship at a church, mosque, synagogue, or temple, America has no second-class faiths. All are equal under the U.S. Constitution.
Okay.
As Christians, we must speak in one voice condemning Christian nationalism as a distortion of the gospel of Jesus and a threat to American democracy. End quote. So there you go. I've been saying all of this no true Christian bullshit. The people who say, that's not my Christianity, need to speak up.
Yeah.
And this sounds like a good start.
Yeah. You okay there?
Mm-hmm.
Knocked your microphone almost into your face.
That's all right. And all of this becomes important when those Christian nationalists are moving fast to pass laws imposing their beliefs on the rest of us. As you know, Florida is one of the many states that considered adding a Bible class into our schools. Kentucky was one of the first. Garbage Governor Matt Bevin signed into law in 2017 a bill creating regulations for public high schools to offer elective literature courses on the Bible and Hebrew scriptures. One high school in Kentucky will not be offering that specific class, as students are returning to school over legal concerns. No shit! The decision makers for Anderson County High School voted unanimously Tuesday to instead offer, and this has been my suggestion from the start, a world religions course instead. That elective course will cover Christianity, Islam, clutch my pearls, Hinduism, and other popular world religions. Principal Chris Glass and social studies teacher Corey Sayer, who both serve on the school council made up of parents and teachers, were concerned about the constitutionality. According to the Anderson News, the two had created an outline for the Bible class over the summer, but decided it could violate the Establishment Clause. Sayer said, "I've been worried about the constitutionality of it for a while. It's very difficult to stay in parameters and stay on course and make sure you don't cross constitutional boundaries." Well done, you one school in Kentucky. There's hope for you yet.
Yay.
Oh, no.
No, it's going to be a shit show. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
No.
And Florida considered this law. And this is Project Blitz. This is a pre-written law that's provided by the Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation to easily just rip out the page from the playbook and file it into the floor. And the Florida bill didn't go anywhere, but might I remind you, the Florida bill was sponsored by Democratic Representative Kimberly Daniels, the crazy lady, who speaks in tongues at her church, which she also, by the way, runs a church.
You ever hear her on the floor? She's speaking in tongues there, too. Trust me.
So I'm glad to see this sort of thing happening, like, especially in Kentucky. And there needs to be more of this. There needs to be more of that even that unified sect of Christianity that comes out and says, hey, this is not our Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
This is, and you can know true Scotsman that till your face turns blue. And you'd be right. But if you look through history, the Christian church has evolved, pun intended, through all sorts of social issues.
Some churches.
Yes, right. And those who have not, Stephen Anderson, have relegated themselves to have 12 people on Sunday. Like, they're not as important. They're not as influential.
I don't know. That worries me. The Catholic Church certainly has a vested interest in protecting minorities.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, given, again, the racial homogenization, it's going to make nothing but financial sense to be anti-racism. I'm not sure that's putting it where your heart is, but, I'll take it wherever I can get it. I'm good.
Right.
But I totally don't think anyone should preach anything political from a pulpit. And what worries me is those same people, they mean it. They mean what they say.
Yeah.
But next week, from the pulpit, they're going to tell you to vote against whoever because they're for abortion.
Yeah.
And that'll be the same candidate who is supporting this, possibly this white nationalist agenda. Until, again, we have genuine separation.
Yes.
Where church stays strictly in the realm of the philosophical and the spiritual, and people individually determine what bills, what policies work for their lives best. It's an incestuous marriage, and, bad things happen when that happens.
Yes.
It always ends. I think that's I kept waiting for you to read something off that I could say, well, that's bullshit. And it's a really well written.
Yeah.
But you know what? Again, it's preaching to the converted. They're,
right.
People who are really, really racist or really believe Christian identity is real fucking nut jobs, honestly believe that there's a wink going on. Shh, we can't say this out loud, but wink, wink, what have you. I'm always more interested in what happens at the social after church, because then you find out who people really are.
Yep.
All kinds of holy until somebody gets an extra piece of meatloaf.
You say something publicly on Sunday, but what's going on Saturday night?
Well, that's the very foundation of my church was LeVay seeing just that. Everybody's all there, all but they're there to see the naked ladies and do some gambling the minute that shit's gone.
Yep.
And then blaming other people for doing the same.
Socially, I think, and I'm sure I've said this before, I think the church gets dragged behind society, right? Society moves at a certain pace, and religion is pulling it back while it's trying to move forward. But 50, 100 years, the church moves on. And there are still vestiges of the old church, if you will. The racist, xenophobic, hateful, Stephen Andersons. But I keep coming back to I genuinely believe if I were a faith leader, in order to stay relevant, in order to keep people's asses in my pews, I'm gonna have to change some of the shit we talk about. I'm gonna have to change some of our core beliefs. And we're seeing that we saw it happen with the way people used the Bible to support slavery and segregation. And then over time, I don't want to say suddenly, over time that sort of moved and changed. And we're seeing some of that happen now with the LGBTQ community, where there are some churches that are saying, yeah, our church doesn't give a shit. Like, come to our church. We don't care. Like, where you have the far right Stephen Andersons of the world saying, yeah, well, the Bible says gays should be put to death. And I'm not saying we should kill them. I'm just saying that the Bible says that's what they deserve. Then for as many of those, there are two, I think this is changing. There are two, what what are some of the churches we talk to at Pride?
Well, there's the Unitarian Universalist.
Yeah, this one was Christ Promise. Christ Promise. There are two of those that say, you know what, that's not something that's important to us.
Right.
Like, we accept everybody as they are. And so, again, like long term, I think over the course, we're seeing an evolution in religion on the LGBTQ issue in the same way that we saw it over the issues of race.
Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely sure that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, believe me, I would love to see religion just disappear.
But it's not even religion, any biblical-based religion. Watching gay people and women and any number of people try to rearrange the Bible so that they can maintain their middle America foothold and call themselves a Christian and believe that they're going to heaven or hell, despite the fact the book is pretty plain.
Right.
Yes.
We don't like you.
Right.
If we decide to like you, it is in spite of the book, not because of the book, which therefore leads to, are you really Christian?
Right.
And why? Which leads me to, why do you need to be?
Right.
You can. I understand believing in God and having faith. I may not do it, but I understand it.
Yep.
But why would you choose a God form that doesn't like you? That you have to, like, frankly, ignore the very book that is the foundation of it in order for you to be welcome.
Yep.
It's a psychological insecurity. It's this for the same reason that certain types of people are drawn to abusive relationships.
And I agree, but abusive relationships are bad.
Yes.
So therefore, I think
abusive religious relationships are bad.
That's a kind of a thing I came to. Like, you know, like when you speak negatively about religion, people come back at you like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Well, you know what? If I've been abused by religion, then I should have every right to be negative and angry and say whatever the fuck I want. Because if I had been in an abusive relationship and I wanted to shit talk about my ex who beat the shit out of me,
you wouldn't
shut me up.
Yep.
So, like, that's...
But you shouldn't even need that, because remember, according to God, who wrote the Constitution, evidently, you have freedom of speech regardless.
Yeah, so...
You know what? Maybe that's the benefit of being a Christian. You get it twice.
Oh, so you could say you could say three times as many things.
Right.
For instance. Right.
Deal with people who hate me, get 6 times the secular right. Fuck. You can see there's a real decision to be made there.
Dan says, I still believe that any church caught preaching politics should immediately and indefinitely lose their tax exempt status.
Thank you, Dan. I love you.
Amen. I agree.
Frickin' man.
As
100%.
As a board member of a nonprofit, it is bullshit that I have to provide the information that I do that churches do not.
Yeah.
I'll gladly provide it, but all other nonprofits should have to provide it as well.
Yep.
Dan also says, update, Sarah is currently at 0.18% blood alcohol content. Yeah, I'm pretty drunk.
Is there anything attached to you, or is that just a good guess?
Dan just knows Sarah really well.
Yikes.
Moving on. Okay.
You were saying?
The next story comes from the Associated Press. Saudi Arabia's King Salman and his cabinet approved new laws that now allow any citizen 21 years or older to apply for a passport and travel freely. Of course, this changes long-standing law that required a woman to get her man, to give consent to obtain a passport or travel abroad. And because the patriarchy is garbage, depending on the circumstance, this hypothetical adult Saudi woman, her male guardian may have been her father, husband, or even her brother or son.
Oh, fuck that.
Where the hell are you on the totem pole?
I'm sorry, my son has more say as to whether...
Saudi Arabia, yes.
Saudi Arabia needs to evolve.
Apparently it's all in the Johnson.
The AP reports other changes issued in the decrees allow women to register a marriage, divorce, or child's birth and obtain official family documents, which could ease hurdles women faced in obtaining national identity card and enrolling their children in school. And women now also allowed to be legal guardians of their children, a right previously only held by men. Great. So now they're only like 100, 150 years or so behind the rest of the developed world.
Yeah, but can we take a hacksaw to them?
Right.
I mean, can we do that? In other countries, maybe? Please.
Still in place, however, are rules that require male consent for a woman to leave prison, exit a domestic abuse shelter, or marry. Women, unlike men, still cannot pass on citizenship to their children and cannot provide consent for their children to marry. That is reserved to the men.
I mean, really, what are we supposed? Are we supposed to play shock?
No.
We know that the new leader of Saudi wants to make some substantial changes in order to, frankly, be granted almost less than, you can't call it third world status when you're that rich, but to go on the global stage as an equal, he's well aware that he has to throw out. Frankly, it's a lot like that Bible thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna, throw some token shit out here, but we're gonna keep the stuff that we know really. Look, you hold a woman's child, you hold a woman.
Yes.
That's just the way it is.
Yep.
If you have the right to put him in school or tell her where she can, you're done. You own her. It doesn't matter if she can drive. It doesn't matter if she can get paper. None of the rest will matter because she will stay with that child. And that's just the way that shit works. And they know it, so it's all bullshit.
Yep. Absolutely.
Bullshit.
It's all about ownership.
Must be nice.
Yeah. So anyway, 100, 150 years behind the rest of the world.
So insane.
Yep. And this story comes from Slate, which just really boils my blood. A quick message to the nationalists. Not that you're listening to our podcast.
If you are, whoa.
The Constitution, by the way, protects the right to not be compelled into speech. You can't force people to stand for the national anthem, the Pledge of Allegiance, or any other masturbatory exercise in nationalism. A 39-year-old man has been charged with felony assault of a minor at the Mineral County Fair and Rodeo in Montana. Witnesses told the local CBS affiliate that as the national anthem began to play, Kurt Brockaway grabbed a 13-year-old boy, picked him up, and slammed him headfirst into the ground. An eyewitness reported that Brockaway said, quote, "The boy was disrespecting the national anthem, so he had every right to do that," end quote. Brockaway told the sheriff's deputy that he had asked the boy to remove his hat for the anthem, and the boy cursed in response, though eyewitnesses did not corroborate that portion of Brockaway's retelling. Another witness told the Missoulian, quote, "There was a little boy lying on the ground. He was bleeding out of his ears, seizing on the ground, just not coherent," end quote. The injuries sustained were as severe as they sound. He was taken to a local hospital where he was diagnosed with temporal skull fractures before being airlifted to a children's hospital in Spokane, Washington. The boy's parents said he continued bleeding from the ear for nearly 6 hours after the incident. Brockaway, objectively a fine, upstanding American who loves his country, flag, and anthem, has previous run-ins with the law. Big surprise. In 2010, he pled guilty to an assault with a weapon charge where he pulled up to a parked vehicle, got out, and pulled a gun on a family and stated he was going to kill them. A friend talked him into putting his gun away and leaving, and for that, he was sentenced to 10 years with the Montana Department of Corrections, which was suspended.
It gets better.
The state, this time, requested $100,000 bond, But a judge ruled him released on his own recognizance. Why is this man walking free? God bless fucking America.
And it gets worse. His defense attorney is saying that, Trump ordered him to.
Yeah.
Now, the catch-22, of course, is, have we created an environment where someone feels okay to do this? Possibly. I won't argue that. I certainly feel it.
Yep.
But do we really want to alleviate personal responsibility in lieu of blaming a shitheel we can vote out anyway?
Yep.
I'm just saying. I mean, I can't believe the judge is actually the one who has me furious. This guy's obviously a big, fat, tremendous douchebag. Oh, well, we already knew that.
Montana. Of course,
Yeah. Okay,
he's
well,
going to
the problem
side
is
with
I'm
this
really
guy.
good. I love Montana and Wyoming. Really, really bad. And up until recently, they were those old school conservatives where it was just, don't tread on me. I don't give a fuck what you do.
Right.
I don't care. We are our own little, we're in the middle of nowhere. We actually are, have to survive when the rest of you don't understand. And, our politics are very conservative, but that's because we don't pay attention to shit anyway. We do what we want to do. Fuck off. So I kind of like them. But again, when you feed an already hungry group of people who, I mean, really, you looked at a kid and your big concern was he didn't take off his fucking hat? Really? What if he did say fuck you?
Right.
Do you know how many fuck yous I've gotten in my life? If I slammed everybody's head in when that happened, yeah, the president made me do it. I just, what I'm really shocked at is that, given the fact that it was Montana, nobody shot that fucker.
Right.
I mean, it seems if ever there was an opportunity.
This brings us back to the beginning, because you have a mass shooting in fucking Texas.
And nobody showed up to save.
The open carry capital of the fucking world. And where's the good guy with the fucking gun?
I hate to be the one to ask this question, because I haven't seen this story at all. Because I bury my head in the sand until Friday nights.
Deep breath.
Because it's Montana. What was the kid's...
Can I be honest? He looked Native American to me.
Yeah.
There are almost no, I mean, at least in terms of actual percentage, Wyoming and Montana probably have the smallest black population in the United States.
That's not even where I was going, but that's what I was worried. If he didn't look white, he either looked Hispanic or Indian.
Right.
But if he's from Montana, he would know the difference.
Yeah.
Okay? Because there are loads of natives. You drive through reservations all the time.
But there's
not a real American.
But yeah.
Not a real American.
He's not that's the thing. Like, I know there's just
that tie into Christianity.
There's so many things going on all at once. There is a Christian nationalist movement, but there's just a straight up masturbate on the, what is it I say? Masturbate on the American flag while you're singing the national anthem.
Yeah.
And the country is an idea. And that's it. The thing about America that you love so much, those are just concepts and ideals. And
hopefully enshrined in law, but
and that's
not
it.
necessarily.
Yeah.
And so I have a problem with expecting people to stand and take their hat off, in this case of the child. Who the fuck cares? Does the flag give a fuck if you don't take your hat off? Does the country give a fuck if you don't take... Who cares?
And if he's a Native American kid, he doesn't, that's not...
You're at a fucking county fair. What the goddamn hell is
Let me bring this full circle. You know who cares about whether you take your hat off or not during the national anthem? The silent generation and the baby boomers. And the sooner, and I swear to God, I almost hate to say this, the sooner they die off, the better.
Hey, I'm one of them. And you need my experience, trust me, and all the people like me. And my father, who's pushing 80, is still one of the most progressive people I know, and always open to new
Yes,
ideas.
not all hashtag not all men.
The difference is
yes.
The thing is,
nuance it. Go ahead.
So I think she's talking about the old white men in power.
Yeah.
And the people that voted them into power, not necessarily the people on the other side of the coin who, just because they're in that category,
right?
They haven't gone through the privilege.
I understand that, but I try to avoid solving racism with racism. You know, I try to avoid, look, it's easy to say this is a problem because these people go to this church and this is what they're taught to believe.
Right.
And this is how it turns out in the real world. I actually have a real hard-on, and I always have, for the dismissal of the experience because they're not in some group that is either in vogue or even doing something right now. They've seen more. They know more.
Yeah.
And if you can shake loose your own prejudices and understand that way faster than you ever imagined you're going to be that person, way the fuck faster. It's actually shockingly terrifying.
Yeah.
You suddenly are like, wait, I've got maybe 10, 15. Holy shit, you know?
Yeah.
That'll put the fear of God in anybody except like me. But still, conceptually it does it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them are holding on to stuff that you and I have, but if you show them, remember, you were against this, or your parents were against this.
Right.
And they changed this so drastically, and it worked out. Try this. But because we don't talk to them, we, much like the mentally ill, don't make eye contact, don't want to see them fall down, break a hip, holy shit, you know. We don't really know how to engage them. But you know what they know how to engage is a voting booth.
Yes.
And those motherfuckers vote. So instead of alienating them, we might want to show them a little deference.
Yep.
And if you look at more progressive countries, they are all heavily deferential to their elderly. And we don't do that. We throw the, sorry, you're no good to lift something anymore,
right.
spend money, fuck off. Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Just a thought.
I think about my own parents, and we don't have conversations about politics. My dad posts shit on Facebook, and every once in a while, I will feel it necessary to comment and poke holes in the thing. And don't let me forget to tell you a fun story about that native gun rights post thing that he made, because the behind the scenes is really funny. But yeah, no, like there is a clear division, a clear separation, and this plays back into the let's understand each other, where we are and where we came from and what we've experienced. You have an entire generation of people who experience the world differently than we are experiencing it right now. And if you can have those conversations and show them in a polite manner, in a way that's not going to shut them down, like, look, yeah, you had a whole lot more opportunities than we did. You had college that was affordable. I don't have that for my kids. And you can sit down and have those conversations about that issue and beyond that, of course. Then great. I don't know how likely that is or how effective that is.
I think it depends where you are. I mean, again, when I'm around a more urban, sophisticated place,
yes,
it's completely normal to go in a restaurant and see non-related elderly people hanging out with middle-aged people because they have some sort of shared what have you.
Yep.
But I think given the 50-50 divide I'm seeing right now, if if throwing out any potential human being who might have a heart or a brain is self-defeating, and we will regret it. Yep. Because you know what? Even when you have great ideas, you have no experience in implementation.
Yeah.
And they do. And for you saying you're absolutely right. They had a much better opportunity to learn and grow than we did. On the other hand, they didn't have the internet to educate them the minute they touched a goddamn book. They had to, crack a fucking book open. And you get...
World Book encyclopedias. Yeah.
You know? Everybody has their thing in their generation. Everyone thinks they had it the hardest, walking uphill in the snow both ways, all that bullshit. But, it's just the next one. Who's going to take care of you? And that's why I'm so worried about the medical thing. Who is going to be in power when you are at your most vulnerable? Those are the people to be nice to. Just a thought.
Yep. Okay, so let's wind it up here. We talked a little bit about the top, and you weren't here. Sorry, you were still putting the baby down. About the new revised Florida Man.
Oh.
I have a new revised Florida Man story. So we kind of talked in the top of the show about how I feel shitty making, having a good laugh at people whose lives have been impacted by homelessness and drug abuse and all of these things. And I can't continue to do that. So in that conversation, Brent sent, so here's what happened. Brent sent over a new revised Florida Man theme song, which we'll play in a moment. And I was like, that's great, but you don't listen to our show because we just said we're not going to do this anymore because I feel like an asshole having a good laugh at these people.
Why?
And he said...
No, because it's called Florida Man, so it separates him. Florida Man is now the person who has done all these stupid things. It's non-directional. If you said, this dude who's so-and-so from Florida, okay, now you're poking fun, but let's face it.
But
it's bad.
Go ahead.
We were like telling the whole story. This dude, this guy's name, this...
Well, that was me.
Yeah. And then making fun.
That was me.
Yeah.
And then
don't do that
having
again.
a good laugh. Right.
But it was a whole segment. We did it all the time.
So Brent said, well, why don't you just, pick out a good news story? Somebody in Florida doing something awesome. And highlight that as, change what a Florida Man is. So the history of Florida Man is Florida Man sort of became this meme of, somebody doing just the most insane, stupid shit because they're from Florida. And so Brent's push was, change that. Pick out a good news story and highlight that. And so I thought, wow, that's just... why didn't I think of that? Right? I feel like kind of an asshole for not thinking of that.
And you were already feeling like an asshole for having spent so much time making fun of Florida Man.
Exactly.
Yeah, but is good news funny?
No.
See, that's the failing of the concept.
No.
But it's funny.
Stay with it for a minute.
Goal.
Anything that makes people smile that doesn't directly hurt someone, I try for it.
Good.
That's just me.
Here's the new Florida Man.
Are you tired of winning?
That's not the new Florida Man.
All the best stories start with
Florida Man, 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 Florida Man. And sometimes a Florida woman. Ooh.
And this week, it's not only a Florida woman, but a Florida kid.
Aww! Yay.
The new school year is upon us. This comes from Spectrum News 13. The new school year is upon us, and unfortunately, many kids will be heading back to class without pencils, notebooks, and backpacks. But one Brevard County girl served up sweet summer drinks to help students in need. 11-year-old Kaylee Edelman is preparing for 6th grade at West Melbourne's Meadow Lane Intermediate School. But her summer wasn't all fun and games. Quote, I asked my mom if we could do a lemonade stand to help kids in need and get school supplies, Kaylee told Spectrum News 13. On August 2nd, for the second summer in a row, Kaylee opened her stand for business in her neighborhood. Last year, she raised $100. This year, People donated $600 in just 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yay.
3 hours, said Kaylee's dad, Scott Edelman, in the rain. Not an ideal day for lemonade, especially when people are supposed to be at work. Some of the guys cutting grass around the subdivision, it was raining, so they came and hung out, drank lemonade, and donated to her cause. The money was well spent buying these supplies for kids who need them. As for Kaylee, she will run her lemonade stand every summer as long as she can. For me, quote, for me, I have a good heart, and I like to do things for other people, says Kaylee. West Melbourne Police School resource officers will be handing out supplies to kids before school begins August 12th.
Oh,
right?
That's really cute.
What a great idea.
I love that. How, dog? Don't bite me. Sorry.
What a great thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, we started off the show talking about Hearth and the things that we're trying to do to help kids in need. And here you've got a kid that's like, you know what? I'm going to take some of my summer vacation and give it back. That's awesome.
I like it.
For her. I'm happy for her. I think she
Yeah.
did the right thing.
Yeah,
I'm just
absolutely.
disgusted that it's required.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that it has to be done.
How many times have I said,
we need a kid?
If you want to fix so many of these problems are education related,
Mhm.
right? You start with education, and then down the road, long term, things get better.
Mm-hmm.
Tax me.
Yeah.
If it means increasing my taxes, tax me. I'm fine with that.
Socialist
And
scum.
I am. You're absolutely right. But especially the 8 people who run the fucking world.
Yeah.
The rich
tax
motherfuckers
them.
who run. Tax them. And what did we see in Trump? Nah, we'll give them the tax breaks, the corporations.
Yeah, the people that
And
don't
now we have a
need
great
us.
big fat deficit. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
But don't worry. There's one pseudo-satanic church who has a tax-exempt status.
Yes.
Yeah, remember when? I'm still just in awe. But unfortunately, because of the recent shooting, and because the guy went to Hot Topic and brought some really lame-ass clothes, of course, we were all deluged.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons we were deluged is that I have to call it pseudo-satanic.
Mm-hmm.
But forget about the Sataning wrong. I'm more worried about the Americaning wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I was certain this was where they were going. But now I am deflecting from people I actually know who assume that is who the real Satanists are. And they're getting the tax deduction, and they're still preaching from the pulpit.
Mm-hmm.
And they are still... And if one more, I'm going to tell you the truth. Here's what's going to finally make me as violent as I'm capable of being. And that's pretty violent.
Are you a gun owner? Sorry.
I can be violent. I actually really like the squishy part of my fist hitting something hard.
There you go.
If anything, Ken, is one more person saying to me, you don't understand what they're doing. They are trying to show the Christians that, by having prayer in school and, having clubs and, the monuments, they're showing them the error of their ways. They will understand that if they get this right, these will. First of all, we've been doing this shit for 50 years. You think we didn't think of that?
Right.
What the fuck you? Yeah, actually, most of us tried it in one way or another and saw all it was an exposure to a prejudice. That was even worse. And yes, they would rather lose their rights than give them. But at this point, they know they don't have to. We're outnumbered. So now we're getting calls. Hey, you guys, how you enjoying your tax-exempt status?
Yep.
Well, you know what? The minute you cross that, and that's why even when I hear good news from Christian churches or Islamic mosques, no matter what they are, my first question is always, do you take tax-exempt status?
Yep.
Do you... Because if you do that, you've already violated the wall. There's no point anymore pretending there's a separation. Now, I'm even willing to compromise. If everything you deduct goes straight into social services for the very that you do not only give to your people, but to the entire
Anybody.
tax base.
Yeah.
I could probably be convinced now you're just a nonprofit who has church on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yep.
But right now, bullshit. Sorry, Dougie, bullshit some more. And, no. I told everyone, no, he's just trying to show them the way. Fuck you. People can read. They don't need Dougie showing them the way. All they need is him to stop using that one word that's going to get somebody killed. It will. I mean, I've been physically attacked way back when it was during the Satanic Panic.
Mm-hmm.
When the mainstream sees this, look, how dare he ask for the same things we have?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to react eventually violently. They always do. Because again, what were we talking about at the start? If I give you your rights, you're taking something from me because we're all a bunch of greedy little fucks.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't care which kind of Satanists you are. They don't care that we don't think there are any other ones. They don't care that we don't take deductions. They care about the loudmouth who is saying this is the way it is. And all my people believe this. And we want this and we want that. Mm-hmm. The rest of us were pretty fucking happy interjecting when it was required and living our lives. Kind of like what religion is supposed to do for you. Enhance, not command. But no. So I had to get my dig in because I really wanted to, because I really hate his guts, and it was a lot of fun. So just in case anyone's listening, no. I am not a member of an organization other than the Church of Satan, and we still maintain we pay our taxes. We do not preach politics under any circumstance from the pulpit, and we will not request any of the things that violate that separation status of having, let's read our... How about, could we just, go in and do our job? Do we really have to have a prayer before I do? Is that really necessary? I don't care if it's an atheist. I don't want any of them. How about we just take 5 minutes and, get to work?
Yes.
Funny.
Yes.
But that was my little bit that I was going to get in no matter what.
Yes.
You had no choice. I manipulated you.
I would not have expected anything else.
Thank you.
Final thoughts?
No, I think Ygraine got it all in. I'm good.
All right. Well, let's wrap up the show here then. Ygraine, thank you for coming in. Come in anytime you want. This is fun.
Absolutely.
I love going to see the...
I like when you're here because I'm not on camera and I don't have to wear a bra.
4 corners.
And I drink more when you're here.
And you have options.
All right. We'll
cool
see you
people.
next week. You've been listening to Sarah Talk.
Sarah Talk is made possible by listener support. Visit patreon.com/SarahTalk to become a patron and help keep this program going. Contact Sarah and Company by email at producer@sarahtalk.com or call 224-40-SARAH. That's 224-407-2724. And follow us on social media, facebook.com/SarahTalkRadio and on Twitter @SarahTalkRadio. Sarah Talk is a production of Sarah Austin Media.